Crow.
And like that, we back, fellas. So we're here for another week of Unpacked, presented to you by the To Be Fair Show and
the G Shit Podcast.
And so yeah, I guess we'll we got another good one for y'all. We're kind of finishing off. We've been on a bit of a Pan-African versus FBA conversation for, I don't know, it seems like over like a month or so. Well, we've hit on a lot of different topics. Today we have the opportunity to bring in a Pan-Africanist to kind of contribute to the conversation as well. And we're going to hit on two topics. We're going to speak about the founder of the movement, or to my understanding, one of the head leads of the movement, Tariq Nasheed. And we're going to speak a little bit more into the actual movement, the FBA movement. But before we do that, panel, I'd love for y'all to introduce yourselves. Top middle, right beside me.
G, y'all know what it is, man. It go by G, host of the G Shit Podcast. Make sure y'all tap in on all platforms. Search GSHPOD. Hi.
Johnny.
What up? It's your boy Johnny P. 1/3 of the To Be Fair Show every Sunday, 4 p.m. Catch me there. Follow us at the To Be Fair Show. Let's get it.
Alex, talk to us.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Glad to be back. I'm Alex. You can catch me on GitHub.
Trey.
What's up? FBA Trey. I'm just here as a guest, doing my best to be a positive voice for FBA Lineage, and try to dispel the notion that FBA is doing anything other than just protecting our culture. Hit the like, share, feedback in the chat, please.
Just joined. Fresh off the press, we got Mayor of Charlotte, or what else they call you? You muted.
Yo, what's up, fellas? A Black. Follow me at Mayor of Charlotte. Happy to be here. Sorry, I'm running a little late. I was on the wrong link. I was early.
And nonetheless, last but not least, we have a new one to the panel. Called in last week, enjoyed the conversation. Even had a little bit of after pod conversation, and it led to the invite to the panel. We have Kofi. We'll let you introduce yourself and let them know where they can find you and your channel.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Thank you all for having me here. My name is Kofi, the Black Critic. That's the name of my YouTube channel. And I'm just pretty much here just to give this. I love this panel. It's a very fair, well-balanced panel. And I'm here to pretty much give to my best of my ability. I want to call myself a Pan-African expert overall. I'm pretty sure there's people that know way more than me. But from what I do know, I could contribute a lot to this conversation as far as like what FBA is and what the fundamental ideologies of what Pan-Africanism is and what it should be and how it's for all of us and how we should embrace it. That's my point.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. So we're gonna hop right into it. I have kind of like a starter question for the panel. Let it get your opinion. Should there be a certain level of decorum for our thought leaders? What do y'all think? We'll start with G and go around.
Man, I think the standard should be authenticity, personally. I don't like the way thought leaders intentionally put on a version of themselves publicly, and then when you kind of meet the real person, they're like completely different. I much rather people be who they are every room they step in. So, decorum is respect. Carry yourself like a, in my case, a gentleman. In a lady's case, like a young lady, or in between. I don't know what you would call that, but carry yourself accordingly, and give people common respect. Outside of that, like, be yourself. You know what I mean? Show your personality. Be that in all rooms, in my opinion. That's what I wish our thought leaders were like.
Okay. Johnny, same question. Is there a certain
Yeah.
level of decorum for our thought leaders or leaders in general? Should they have?
I mean, I think there should be like a personal, standard that you hold yourself to, a personal code of ethics. Uh, the decorum. I, that's one of those words, I kind of struggle with, because I think that's a subjective, thing to where it could be left up to definition. But I think, like G was saying, you should be authentic, you should be yourself, and you should be yourself everywhere you go. And I think if you do that, then you good.
Okay. And Alex, I'll continue building a question as I ask you. Is Oh damn! I done lost my place. Oh yeah, here we go. Uh, should there be a certain level of decorum for our thought leaders, and if not, if so, does it take away from the message?
Um, I think you can't be a thought leader unless you have decorum. When you experience people who pretty much call themselves a thought leader who don't have decorum, they're essentially merchants in like fomenting hate amongst the masses. So I don't
Mm.
think you can call yourself a leader or someone who's trying to like foster a conversation for people to kind of reform how they think or to address how they can move a different way. If you're not doing that with decorum, if you're not doing that with care, if you're not doing that with a certain level of I guess like stewardship to the people that you're trying to galvanize. If you ever find yourself kind of like following or subscribing to the pretty much the teachings of someone who's not doing that, I think you might have to do some soul searching to kind of figure out why the their low vibrational self resonates with you. And I think you probably will be surprised to find out that there's some unaddressed things that you might need to address about your inner thoughts. But yeah, that's can what was the other part of that question?
Do you think that it takes away from the message?
Yeah, 100%. I think a good example is kind of like what's going on in Palestine. There's a lot of people, like a lot of, college students all over the country, like they're making sure not to like, although they're anti-Israel, they're not going out there like anti-Jew or anti this. Like they're making sure like, hey, like we're against the government and how they're treating the Palestinians and how they're bombing Rafah. But they're not saying like they're making extra certain to make sure they're not even slightly being, conflated with someone who might, peddle in, anti-Semitism. So yeah, 100%. You can't get people to essentially form a world around justice and peace if you're not doing the steps to make sure that everybody understands that an injustice doesn't necessarily give you the right to condemn an entire group of people.
Got you. Trey, FBA Trey.
Was good. Was good. I want to echo what G said and what John said. What all that really matters is being authentic. Because if a person goes out there and they just put on a face to pander or tell people what they want to hear just to be accepted, but they have to sacrifice their authenticity, then they can't be respected as a leader. And one thing I love about this show is it's another example of a voice for Black people, because we haven't really always had a voice, especially since like the Reconstruction era. So when we need more people. Like the other side, they have their Tucker Carlsons, they have their Candace Owens, they have all different flavors. So if Tariq Nasheed is our Tucker Carlson, then so be it. We also have ADOS to be our advocates in Congress, and they have a little more of this decorum. So, and I don't like, was Malcolm X, was that decorum when he was calling out the devils? I mean, you just got to make it plain. So keep it
Okay.
simple.
A Black.
Yeah, to get respect, you got to give respect. I mean, definitely be authentic, but I feel like a lot of great thought leaders' authentic side is very eloquent. I don't think a lot of it is always, putting on, but just being aware of not letting your message get lost in your delivery. If you look at a lot of our great thought leaders historically, they're all great orators. They all speak well. They all can captivate a crowd by rising above the language of the common man. You know, Sexy Red is authentic. You know, that's a lot of the defense I get when I'm hearing from women. And she's real, she's transparent, she's authentic. I don't think she can, you know, lead a revolution, at least not a good one, or, you know, bring economic impact or nothing like that. So I think you definitely have to be self-aware that my message is more important, and I don't want to like dismiss the thought of perception, because you know the moment you slip up, people will attack your tone, they will attack your delivery, they'll attack how you speak if you curse. You know, Kevin Samuels said a lot of great things about building on the Black family, and a lot of people attack his tone and the way he delivered his message or whatnot. So you definitely got to be cognizant of that. Definitely be real, be yourself. You know, you can still have personality, but you ain't got to get up there, you know, call everybody bitches and motherfuckers. You know, it's only so far that's going to reach. I think it can reach a small group, but I think when you're trying to reach a mass scale, you need to have a certain, you know, you need to be on point with your language, because language is powerful.
Gotcha. Kofi, talk to us. I think you muted.
Sorry about that. I'll start off with a saying: heavy is the head that the one who wears the crown. And we all know what that is, because it comes with responsibility. You can't say whatever you want willy-nilly. You have a responsibility to whatever movement that you're a part of, that you're going to have to represent, you know, on the stage and behind doors. So on authenticity, being genuine in what you're really standing up for, you know, that is very important, you know, in any leader, in what you're doing. But again, you can't please, what Bob Marley says, you can please the people sometimes, but you can't please all the people all the time. So we're saying that if you have if you have a framework of, look, this is what I'm about, right? And the message and what you're fighting for is bigger than you, then it's not about who the leader is. It's about the message. You always kill a message. You can't kill a movement. So if that person is very genuine in what they're doing, and I think you guys already spoke about that already, you know, if you're very authentic in what you're doing, people will believe what you're doing, right? Even we have some, in my opinion, FBA is a cult, but even you have movements in cults, they believe the leader and the message of the leader, even though the leader is put up something on a pedestal like a Jesus, but is what that leader is saying, right? So the moment we find out if that leader is disingenuous in the message that he's saying for whatever purposes, then that kind of undermines what, you know, what they're about. But yeah, leadership and decorum is extremely and very important. You want someone who's going to live what they preach, not say one thing because it looks good, and then behind closed doors you do the polar opposite.
Q, real quick. At some point, I think we might need to define FBA, because if we get into, in the beginning, go too far calling it a cult and things like that, then it kind of makes it may get us off track, because FBA
Okay, gotcha.
it's a lineage.
I kind of wanted to speak through FBA in its own isolated section per se, where we can kind of like define that completely out. We'll start with the definition of FBA. But this question is kind of leading into more so a conversation about Tariq, and then we'll build into the FBA movement. Is that fair?
I mean, that's cool. I just don't want people like mischaracterizing my lineage, because I'm very passionate about that. It's just like if you were like an African, I say the Igbo tribe, and I say something negative about that, and then nobody responds. It's like,
but you do that all the time. Like that's literally what this show is.
But let me. I want to ask Kofi. Like, you don't think characterizing FBA as a cult, you don't think that's inflammatory? You think?
So let me tell you my disclaimer, and I do this all the time. When I say FBA, I'm not speaking about all Black Americans or people who consider themselves Black Americans. I'm talking about Black Americans who use that phrase, that acronym FBA. If we all know, if you go out in the street and you say, I'm a FBA, no one's going to know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
So
not for now, but it's a growing movement. That's how African American was at first. But what would you prefer to call us? Because at the end of the day, Black American is very vague. Any African that hops
well,
off the boat
that's
is a Black
debatable.
American. I mean, if
Well,
you're
that's
in
debatable.
America and you're Black, then you're a Black American.
That's
I think calling
again,
it a cult is like really giving it too much credit. I don't even think they have that strong of a following to be a cult.
well, it's not to do with the following, because you can have 9 people and it could
But
be a cult. The
It's
reason why I'm
very
calling it
a cult has a very negative connotation. No,
Yeah, we need to
agree.
define the code, bro. We need to define the code.
like
The
so,
code
so
means-
you're like
I'm being
intentionally calling it
asked
something
different
very
angles.
negative. You're intentionally
All right,
calling
fuck
something
it. We're
very
here
negative.
now. So really quickly, I think that this is probably going to be one of the easier distinctions that should be made with the whole FBA conversation. Trey, I'll leave it at you first. Do you think that there is a differentiation between the FBA lineage and the FBA movement?
I guess it's kind of, there are different aspects of it, but it is one and the same because delineation is a movement and FBA itself is a delineation. Because at one point we were just considering ourselves one big global Negro in America. So everything we did here, we credited everyone else, and we were reaching back to Africa for a sense of pride. Whereas the FBA movement is acknowledging our own separate lineage over here and our own our own accomplishments that we've done over here as well. So you can't really separate it, but it doesn't have to be a movement to be a separate tribe. Like that's like saying, is Igbo a movement? It would be a movement if they never realized they were Igbo before and they were just considering themselves one African and then they didn't acknowledge their roots. So it's kind of like a difficult thing to.
And I guess maybe let's see if this comparison lands. Because it's going to continue to be like a bit of a circle conversation when it comes down to defining it. If we don't differentiate, it's almost like somebody being religious Jewish and then somebody saying that their heritage is Jewish but they're Muslim.
I'm looking at the
like-
website right here. Actually, it's got a whole FBA official FBA.com website, official FBA.com.
Mhm.
And it's got some definitions on like who is foundational Black American and who is not. I don't know if we want to read through the whole thing or maybe drop some quotes in the chat, have people respond that way. But I'll start dropping some quotes from here so people can see from the source, if you will.
Gotcha. But I guess my main thing was just making sure that if we can come to an understanding that there is like a difference. It's almost like Black Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter. Where there's a movement, then there's like the concept. Same thing as I was saying, like with like Jewish, like there is a heritage or like a lineage, and then there is a religious group.
So what's the FBA movement?
I think we're asking the question the wrong.
Well, that would be what Tariq Nasheed is pushing. Where there is a push for reparations, like there's a rally for reparations that's happening. Like there's a movement that is detached from if your parents' parent was literally a slave in America. Like that's something that's lineage. But there is also a separate movement that is going under the moniker of FBA, correct?
That's correct.
That is pushing for reparations, correct?
Tariq is a leader not a leader, but he's one of he pushes delineation. He also pushes for reparations. So just because he's the same source, like you said, there is somewhat of a separation because even if we weren't going for reparations, we would still be a separate ethnic group at the same time.
Right. And that to me, I guess I wanted to make sure that so when we're defining it, let's try and just define the movement at the moment. I think it'll be easier because I think we all can understand and agree with what the lineage of FBA is.
But I think we're asking the question the wrong way as far as what the movement is. We know what the movement is. I think what the heart of all is you got to understand the people first, then you understand what the movement is. So I think the question we should ask Trey is who is or what is an FBA? and then you can get into the movements and the layers of what FBA is. So once he tells me what FBA is, I know what he's going to tell me. Then what I'm saying is going to make more sense. So if he can real quickly tell me what is FBA.
FBA is a foundational Black American, and it basically means that you are a non-immigrant Black person. You were here at the founding of the United States. Your people fought in every war. Your descendants are the people that became the wealth of this country, and then you are a separate group, like the group that created rock and roll and the group that fought white supremacy to give a place for other people in the diaspora to be able to come and benefit, and a lot of times be hostile against us because they are indoctrinated by white. We can get into all of it, but FBA is basically the source, the people that were here originally in America, that lineage.
So it isn't a heritage.
So
and it's not a lineage.
You said it's a what's a what?
So it isn't a heritage and a lineage only.
It is. It depends on what you mean, because it is that. But when you say
you have more like criteria that comes outside of just where your people come from. There's a certain
no. What criteria did I say? Because I'm telling you more about the people.
You just subscribed you just subscribed a whole bunch of like additional things that you have to do to be within the in group.
No. Those are.
You can't just be like a descendant of someone. You also have to do this and do that.
No, but we already did that, is my point. Like all those things I listed are part of what FBA is. So it's not like you have to.
Like I said, it's more than just heritage.
Those are all characteristics of an FBA. And all those characteristics
let me explain
are non-immigrant.
You can have German heritage simply from your mother being from Germany. That's not what you're describing. You're describing an FBA person is a person who has this and does that.
I'm saying an FBA person is a non-immigrant Black American. Therefore, they did all of these things that I listed. Those aren't like extra criteria. It's one thing. It's like you're a driver. Therefore, you know how to work the pedal. You know how to use the wheel. I mean, if you don't do all those things, then you're not a driver. So it's not like I'm really confused.
Let me answer why what you're saying, and you said everything that I thought you would have said, which is just what Tariq Nasheed says and mimics over and over and over again. That's not historical at all, right? And it doesn't make fundamental sense. There's no Black historian. I'm sorry?
You're gonna have to go slow. Don't just say a bunch of like 10 lies and then let me respond. Can you just say one at a time?
I had to sit there and take it. Right.
No, all right. Let's do one of my things that you agree with. One of my things you disagree with at a time. Like, what's the first thing that I said?
Well, I didn't want to cut you off because you explained what FBA was. So that's why.
Can you tell me the one that I said that was the most egregious that you think you could debunk the easiest? Can we start there?
I mean, all of it. But so when you say that FBA is a person who they could trace their lineage back to chattel slavery. Let's start there. Is that correct? Is what you're saying, right?
No. Not all of us were enslaved. Some of us were Moors that were in Florida that weren't enslaved.
Oh, okay, whatever. That still doesn't make any sense. Those are still Africans anyway, right?
So says who?
Says the Moors from Morocco.
This
Morocco, that's in Africa.
But they were all global before.
I'm sorry?
A lot of Moroccans don't even refer to themselves as African.
No, we're talking about
what are you
Arab.
talking
Like
about?
we have to.
I'm citing facts. North Africans, they don't necessarily always consider themselves African. I'm just telling you facts.
That's true, but the Moors, Black Moor, and the Moors of Spain during the 700 AD, right? That was in Spain in Granada. Those are the ones that we're talking about.
But they weren't just in Spain and Granada.
Those are Africanized. Those are Arabized Africans.
They were in America.
They were Black.
They were also in America, but they were also in America.
Okay, we're getting off the point. So when you talk about Black people being here, from Africa, that were slaves, that were African, right? Your ancestors were African, right?
That's not you. You're starting off wrong,
Hold
bro.
on, I'm trying to talk. Even if you say you are descendant of Moors, and in Florida, and that time in Florida wasn't even part of the United States, but whatever, right? Even if you're saying that, we're still talking about Africans, right, that are here from,
No,
you want to say from North Africa, because the Moors come from Africa.
because you're saying the out of Africa theory, right? You keep saying we're Africans, so I'm telling you no. Like, that's the
brother,
first thing.
there's a lot of things that you said, and I'll let you say your piece.
Yeah, hey, Trey, let him finish out the entire part.
You can't let him talk. That's not how this works.
I heard Q, Alex.
So they're Africans anyway. So one thing, right? This is American history. This is not Kofi's history. This is American and African history. West Africans were taken from West Africa, right? And it was sent to the Americas. The Americas meaning North America, Central America, and South America, including the Caribbean, right? This America, North America, stopped only having slaves due to the Stolen Rebellion, Nat Turner's Rebellion. When they did their census, there was more Africans there than there were white people. So they stopped importing Africans. So there's something called the inter-transatlantic slave trade, where they were taking Africans from the Caribbean, because remember, the places like companies that traded Africans, like the West Indian Dutch Company, had businesses and colonies in United States, in the Caribbean as well. So if they wanted more slaves in Jamaica, they got somebody from North Carolina. If Barbados needed more slaves, if they have slaves in Barbados, they'll ask for some FBAs from Virginia to come to Barbados. It's called the intertransatlantic slave trade. So already your thing from the gate falls apart, because you're making it seem like everybody that was on the plantation came straight to America, stayed in America, and they lived and they died there. No, there was a lot of that going. There was a lot of people going on, as well as ships. So, the transatlantic slave trade, it went to the Caribbean, and it also went to America. I saw a post right there that said about Dr. Henry Clark, we're getting too much, I'm paraphrasing here, we're getting too caught up in where the ship dropped us, not concentrating from where we came from. So that's one of the points where FBA is divisive and is not historical.
All right, fellas. Okay. So we're going to circle back this conversation. I'm gonna try and redirect back to Tariq and finish that part off, and then it seems like FBA is gonna have a lot of legs. So we'll get right back to it. But I'll ask this question. So from the Hidden Color series, and all the information that has been given from that to the FBA movement and the push for reparations and delineation, do you believe that there has been a net negative or net positive impact overall from his cultural contributions to the culture? His contributions to the culture. There we go. A Black, we'll start with you.
Yeah, man. So as far as Hidden Color series, it's funny because if you watch that series, he's connecting a lot of things to Africa. He's connecting a lot of things to the African roots of things. So to kind of be like almost anti-African now, I look at Tariq as just like an opportunist of like finding different niches of how he could capitalize. I think what made the Hidden Color series was the people he had featured on that, went on to do bigger things. Dr. Umar was a big voice and part of that series, and he doesn't even fuck with Tariq now anymore. So overall, I think initially the first like Hidden Colors 1 and 2 did well in adding to the awareness of kind of giving people that crowd that don't want to read, that don't want to watch long drawn out documentaries, are not privileged to go to class. It allowed them to kind of have their first awakening, to kind of start digging deeper. But Tariq was the producer behind it, but it was the people he had featured on it, that really made it. But I just think it's funny now for him to kind of be this, FBA leader, and most of the Hidden Colors was kind of built on the connections to Africa and how everything went back to Africa. But now it's like, only America. So I think it's a net positive in the beginning, but I think it started to kind of get away from that, when they started to find out who he was. The third and fourth part didn't do as well as the first two parts, and I think it was reflective of people kind of figuring out, well, who's putting this together, and not really respecting the person who was putting it together, and kind of starting to see them as more of an opportunist. So I think initially it was a good deal with good intent, but I think Tariq is ran by money. He's a capitalist. I mean, nothing wrong with capitalism, but when it's kind of mixed with opportunism and using the black plight to come up, you go from pimping chronicles and manipulating women to Hidden Colors, and to now your new hustle is the FBA. It just starts to kind of get real divisive at a point, because the leader, or the so-called leader, I should say, is all over the place right now.
Gotcha. I will say the Hidden Color tapes in, what was that? That was like 2010. That was like when the N1 tape hit the hood back in the day. I promise you. It was like, have you seen Hidden Color? It was a time. Johnny, how you feeling?
Thanks.
I mean, I think just bringing the conversation mainstream and where it's kind of led us. I mean, we still talking about it to this day. I mean, I think it's, it has to be a net positive, whether you agree with them or not, whether you think he's the right way or not. Just the fact that we even, having these conversations and are able to, bring them more mainstream, and we're able to take back, a lot of the control of the narrative. I think it is a net positive at the end of the day. We can talk about, scheme, and whether we want to, be a running team or a passing team, and, what kind of defense we want to run. But the end of the day, we still talking about these things. And I think that's a net positive, because we weren't before, and now we are.
Gotcha. Alex.
I guess like whether this is positive or negative really depends on, I guess it's pretty individualistic. At the end of the day, like that's like saying like North Korean propaganda has a positive impact on North Koreans or something like that. The reason why I say that is like I think all of us, majority of us probably watch Hidden Colors, but if you go rewatch it, a lot of that stuff is like historically inaccurate. Like not to like drudge up the whole movie, but like Beethoven was black. Like okay, like a whole host of other things that I don't really want to divulge into, but like.
Bro, you got to. You can't just say something and then not have anything to back it up.
Fucking Christ, Trey. Shut up. I'm talking.
Bro, you're going to be mad disrespectful like that. It's just kind of crazy.
Oh, like, how about you just shut the fuck up and let me talk? Thank you.
Hey, fellas, let's
you just talked about
let's bring the temperature down.
How about you just quiet?
Shut up.
How about you shut the fuck up and let me talk? Thank you.
Now you're being an emotionally triggered.
G, you're going to have to hit the mute button in a second.
Thank you.
But Alex, go ahead and finish off your point.
Yeah, so pretty much like I think A Black pretty much brought up the point of like if it wasn't the Pimpin' Chronicles, if it wasn't him in Brazil, pretty much talking about like how he needs to go down there and get a Brazilian woman. Like I think honestly, I think Tariq Nasheed is a very talented person when it comes to tapping into like what the Black community wants, what the Black community needs. But I don't necessarily think that he's doing it from the most auspicious reason or purpose. I think he's doing it from a place of just sheer like profit. It's very profit driven. I'm not gonna lie and say like I like Mink Slide. I think that's an amazing album. Like I'll tell you that all day. But like, do I think Tariq Nasheed is coming from an authentic and genuine place? No, I don't think so. I think Tariq Nasheed is about his money. I think he's about making his paper. And at the end of the day, I think he has inspired something real for a lot of people. But I think to Tariq Nasheed, FBA really just stands for Tariq Nasheed's bank account. So that's all I got to say on that one.
Let me let it simmer for a second. G.
Are you gonna do me like that, bro?
I gotta skip it real quick. I'm gonna come to you, but I gotta let let it simmer a little bit.
All right, like it's Q. Just for my sake, can you just ask me the question one more time because net
negative, net positive impact when it comes down to Tariq Nasheed cultural impact.
So man, I think if we talk about cultural impact, it's a net positive. I think I do find it. So, I hear, so I think it's a net positive for several reasons. Like we said, when Hidden Colors dropped, it had niggas doing all types of research, finding themselves, like trying to, figure out their history. Very positive, and it helps open up the mind to research other things, right? Like, so I think that whole experience is positive. I think his rhetoric at times, right, is very inflammatory, similar to Kofi calling niggas cults. I think it's unnecessary. Both examples, in my opinion. But it's like, it's one thing to be like, it's just kind of speaking out loud, but it's like, why are people so mad at this idea of FBA, right? Like, is it just because he's talking about non-FBAs in a certain way people don't like, or what is really the problem people have with promoting this idea of FBA and making it such a thing? Like, oh, y'all are stupid. Oh, he's a clown. He's stealing all y'all money. Like, it's funny to me that how people make such a mockery of it, and I think that is what makes it more negative, because it's like, all in all, what's the, if you're not anti-reparations and you say you for the diaspora, then why wouldn't you be for FBAs getting theirs in America in a supportive way? Like, I just don't see why it's such a divisive topic amongst Black people, personally.
Trey.
I'm gonna have like two things to respond to, man. Like,
I'm gonna let you land the plan, Kofi.
He's gonna take 9 shots at me. Go ahead, man. Go ahead,
bro. I wasn't planning on taking any shots. I'm gonna try to keep it short and sweet, because I just think it's interesting that the only people who adamantly opposed Tariq are non-FBAs, or they're either they're folks that have non-FBA dual allegiances. But all the people that are for the people and they want reparations to go to Black people, then they're not gonna. They understand that if he's an outspoken advocate for reparations, and he's putting it out there that we should be more, we should have a better political strategy to get what we want. If that's what he's putting out there, and you're focused on him instead of building us up your own way, or even better yet, building up the place that you came from, then that says a lot about you. And so I have a quick question just for Kofi and Alex. Do you believe that people that are non-FBAs are entitled to reparations in America?
Yes.
That says a lot. What about you, Alex?
What's the question? Do non-FBA people are they entitled to reparations?
Are people that came here willingly, non-FBAs, are they entitled to reparations in America?
Oh, are they entitled to reparations in America? I'm sorry, Alex. No, I thought you mean are FBAs entitled to reparations. I thought you asked that. Yes, FBAs are entitled to reparations. Yes, people that just came here like me, whatever rule y'all pull out, you're behind the rule. If I just came here, I should get nothing. Anyone that just came here should not get reparations for FBA's African ancestors. No.
So it's not. So it shouldn't be race based. It should be lineage based.
Yes. Well, even on your trouble criteria of what lineage is and what FBA is, because I just proved to you that's not historical. But go ahead.
If you say so, I'll take that for now. But Alex.
Yeah, I asked a question, like, on what basis? Like, reparations for, like, American child slavery or something else?
Reparations, just keep it simple. The reparations movement that we're fighting for.
You can't say keep it simple with reparations, because even based upon what FBA prominent leaders are talking about, they're not just getting reparations just for slavery. They're getting reparations for a whole host of things.
But it includes slavery.
If we're talking about American child slavery, then no. Because it goes back to my original point of, I think reparations is going to be on the basis of what has happened to you and how did this impact you. There are African Americans, Caribbean American, continental Africans who were here during a whole host of like civil unrights that happened to them. So I'm not going to sit here and say that they're not afforded to that. Now, if we want to go into a conversation of whether or not that's divisive, I want to know why, if 1 and 2 can happen together, why is that such a, like, I don't know, why is that such a no-go? And then
simple.
like earlier, you kind of were upset about Kofi calling something a cult. Well, like I said, I asked you a question earlier. Is this a cult? Is it just heritage and lineage? Because if it's just lineage, why do I need dual allegiance? Why do I need dual allegiance? Why
This
do
is a common tactic that y'all
And
like
why
to
do
do.
you have to repeat everything that Tariq Nasheed says? It's
and
like
why
there's
is
no
something a
independent
common
thought.
like why is
There's no
something have to be a
independent thought
common
in this
tactic?
group.
Like why is there always like a talk track for something?
Man, the question I asked is the crux of the issue, and y'all are running from that. If we're talking about, because
So now I'm running for answering your question.
can I finish? I don't want another emotional outburst.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Come on, fellas. Let's keep it together.
He told me to shut the fuck up.
Because you're always fucking talking when I'm talking. It's
bro.
annoying.
Interrupted.
But I'm
You're the
saying,
only person interrupting people's shine, man.
But y'all just talked about have decorum, and now y'all telling me to shut the fuck up. Y'all just like walking hypocrites.
Yeah, because I'm not a thought leader. I'm standing on shut the fuck up when I'm
Okay,
talking
exactly.
business. That's what I'm standing on.
You were not
I
a
don't
thought
talk when
leader
you talking,
either.
Trey.
That's the first thing. That's the first thing you said. I agree with.
All right, Trey, come on. Yeah,
Okay,
real quick.
Okay. So as far as reparations go, the reason it has to be lineage based, because if it was race based, it would be thrown out because it's constitutionally illegal to have a law that's race based.
But I think they agreed with that part already.
No, but he said that if Alex said that if there's a reparations claim and it's not just slavery and we're talking about reparations, then basically whatever black people were over here, if you're Caribbean American or you're everything, if it's not just foundational black Americans, you should be a part of that conversation.
And but then you would have to like describe out what the reparation is for.
Wait, hold on.
That's historical. He's saying it's actually historical.
Like you're essentially saying what you're saying, Trey. You say that it can't be race-based. It has to be lineage. And your lineage is tied to a traumatic event that happened in this country, correct?
It's tied to all of the traumatic events that happened in this country. Yes.
Okay. So if we're going to go with that logic, is there not situations and traumatic events past slavery that has impacted not just black people, any group of people in this country, right?
No, I disagree with that.
So, like first responders on 9/11, they're not like they're like descendants. They aren't afforded to opportunities based upon that traumatic event from losing a parent that day.
9/11 is such a false equivalency.
Yeah, I gotta agree there.
How is it a false equivalency? It's a traumatic event that happened on this soil that people actually got reparations for.
Can I just interject as to why we shouldn't
compare? I thought A Black was about to start lifting weights on camera. My bad.
Towards it. So if we're going off of, hey, hold on. If we're going off of presidents that happened in this country, that's what we're going off of. I'm not living in a fairy tale land. Like, once again, government assistance, government reparation, government restitution has always in this country been awarded on the basis of the government trying to restore you based upon a traumatic or an injustice. So once again, we're talking about something that literally doesn't even have to be settled because it's already settled.
Can I interject now?
Sure.
Okay. So this is just simply why you shouldn't compare 9/11 injustice to say an injustice like slavery. Okay. Slavery was an American institution. It was government. It was written in law. Like this was enforced by the institution, not just of America, but by multiple states within America having their own laws written specifically to discriminate against people based on race. The events of 9/11, we can have conspiracy talks about the inside job and so forth, but it's nothing nearly the same as writing laws and making sure that a certain people are subjugated in this way over generations, hundreds of years of intentionally holding people back. So I feel like I'm not, I would never talk down on anybody's experience who lost a loved one in 9/11. But if you look at that relative to the institution of slavery and how blacks have been treated in America, that is a merely a snapshot compared to what Black people have gone through in America. So that's why I'm saying these in the terms of what America owes somebody, what America owes Black people because of how America treated Black people is different than what America might owe victims of 9/11 because they let 9/11 take place. I see those as different things.
Yeah, if I'm to interject a little bit, maybe try and like bridge a bit of the gap. I still don't think that anybody is saying that reparations for slavery is not due. Is that correct, Kofi and Alex?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think that his point was to make a comparison between slavery and 9/11. More so, it'd probably be like redlining in 9/11 or something like that, like a different
Yeah, like-
event that would have impacted people of color throughout the duration of America that was after slavery. Is that a fair representation of your point?
Yeah, like, okay, so maybe not 9/11, but what about the situation in Chicago where pretty much like the police precinct was pretty much like unfairly like arresting Black men and put like pretty much just assaulting them and holding them against an arrest. Those Black men that were pretty much arrested in a large scale got reparations. That's what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not on this train of lineage, because I feel like, honestly, when it comes to reparations, the work is already being done. It already applies to the people who were impacted by it. That is my ultimate statement. Like, so ultimately, it's a nothing burger. We don't have to like delineate lineage and heritage, because what we always go off of, who needs to be restored? Who needs restitution? No one in the history of America who is serious in politics has ever said, you know what? Let's give it to the Jamaicans. Let's give it to the South Africans. No one ever said that. So we are all having these silly ass conversations about shit no one ever talked about.
That's not true, bro.
Like, since the dawn of time. How do I know this? The first person to get reparations in the country, I believe, was a Kenyan or Ghanaian woman who was enslaved here. She was the first person to sue for it. Why did she get reparations? Wasn't because her people came from here. It was because something happened to her and they needed to restore her and they needed to give her restitution. So it's really a nonsense conversation to always talk about lineage and heritage, because the last time I checked, if you can prove that you are a descendant of someone who's been harmed, who's been suffered an injustice, who needs restitution, that's all it needs. I don't need to know that your people came from Louisiana or New York or any of that stuff. But that's what I'm talking about. But go ahead, Q.
Oh no, I was just going to throw it to Trey.
Do you see how that evokes hostility? Like, if I were to go to some nation in Africa and tell them that, oh, we don't want to hear about you being Igbo. We don't want to hear about your tribe. All the other tribes, we want to tell them we don't want to hear it. Do you not see how that would trigger them, tick them off? And then here you are telling us that we don't need to make a distinction of our own lineage.
Hey, make sure both of y'all allow each other to finish out the entire statement before retorting to things. Y'all also both do this where y'all ask like rhetorical questions within like your entire statement. Let's try and allow each other. If not, y'all gonna be cursing at each other again pretty soon.
Man, I wasn't cursing at Alex, bro. That was one way. Only cursing I did was repeat what he said, because I'm here to keep it civil and have a constructive, intelligent conversation. And I'm okay to force some back and forth as well. So you said, who is we? We is foundational Black Americans. That's my tribe, with my lineage in America. So if somebody comes from Jamaica or somebody comes from the continent and says, no, you are African, and then they want to tell us that we can't delineate, then I feel the same way that they would feel if I go to their homeland and tell them that, no, you're just not your tribe, you're just one big African, even though they had entire civil wars against each other. We've never done anything violent to anybody else as FBAs. We don't know FBAs. We aren't out there jumping people because they're not FBAs. Like, we're not even advocating any of that. Meanwhile, on the continent, that happens all the time. So I think a lot of this, people are just used to FBAs in America being groomed to turn the other cheek, which is, we picked that up in the plantation. We've allowed them to be like walk all over us. So then immigrants come over here and then they think that they can do the same thing. And I think what Tariq Nasheed is waking up is, we don't have to do that. We don't have to take the high road. We don't have to turn the other cheek. We can give back the same energy that we're receiving. And if you come from the continent and you're not on that, then you are our brother. and we love you. And I think Tariq says that multiple times.
All right, Ken, a lot happened. I don't know where to start. I'll start with FBA Trey. So another thing, from the beginning, this whole thing with delineation. If my mother was born in North Carolina and my father was born in Georgia, I can't say, no, I was born in China. I'm going to delineate. To me, that just sounds retarded. It makes no sense, right? And this is why I say I don't want
you said you were born.
I don't understand FBA delineating from their DNA and their history.
My bad. Can you say that example again? I don't know.
It's like me saying, if my mother is from Virginia and my father is from Georgia and they had me, and I say, well, I don't want to be a Black American no more. I'm Chinese. I'm delineating. That makes no sense. You cannot delineate from your DNA. You cannot delineate from your history. So just saying delineation doesn't make common sense to me at all whatsoever. And that word is thrown around a lot. You use that word a lot, like it has some type of validity to it when it's the total opposite. Right, so that's one thing I don't get.
Ethnogenesis is the answer to that, bro. I don't know if you've heard of the term ethnogenesis, but it happens when a group goes into a new place and they have several generations where they build their own separate, distinct culture, and they don't celebrate. They don't have any of the cultural ties to where they came from. They have their own one, and they become a new group. It happens all the time with all different groups. Everybody can trace back.
I understand that culturally you change. I get that, but what I don't want to go into something else because I still want to address certain things that the other gentleman in the blacks that said, but FBA has a culture, right? The problem comes is that you think that you just develop your culture all on your own. That's not true. FBA culture is European and African. It's a fusion of those things. You can shake your head all you want. It's a fusion of those things because the things that you have, the things that you did under the system of slavery, right? Whatever African thing that you were able to keep, so like your diet, right? Rice. If you know anything, again, I'm not trying to disrespect, is learn one, teach one, right? The crops that that they kept out West Africa, like rice. We were on plantations, we were on rice plantations, right? White people didn't eat rice. Black people ate rice.
So Africans invented rice.
West Africans eat sweet potatoes and all that, right? Black Americans also here eat potatoes.
No, white sweet potatoes and yams are different.
Y'all want to talk about fried chicken? That's West African, brother. Y'all want to talk about fried chicken? Y'all didn't invent fried chicken. That's an Irish delicacy, right? That's Irish. When people say Black Americans don't have a culture, that's insane. But what I find on the conversation that FBAs have is like they just develop this all on their own without any influence, being Africans, right? If you're a first or second generation African in America, because FBAs didn't spread out the ground next to in a fucking cornfield. That didn't happen, right? So you are under the control of Europeans, and you're taking on their culture, their dress, their way of speaking, and mannerisms, and try to retain your African identity. So whatever African identity you have retained, that's what it is. So I'm done with FBA. I'm done. So I'm sorry.
The Irish tie is how the fried chicken. Got it.
Yes.
All right, fellas. So
you can
just hop in real quick. I'm gonna do quick housekeeping, and then just a quick rundown. One, super chats are open. We are streaming live on GH Podcast and the To Be Fair Show. Cash apps are inside the bio. Feel free to tip whoever your favorite panelist is, who you agree with, whose perspective you enjoy the most.
Shout out to the chat, bro. They got that thing on fire, man. I can barely keep up, bro. It's going crazy.
It's definitely moving. Hey, shout out to the chat. Can continue the conversation. Y'all really do contribute a lot to the conversation in general. We all looking at the chat as well. Two
I'm sorry,
panelists, real quick,
yeah.
panelists. Again, let's allow each other to finish out our entire statements before our commentary, whether it's agree or disagree with it. I think it's just gonna make for an easier listen when we listen back, and for the audience, and for each other to be able to complete our complete thoughts. Secondary, let's make sure that we continue to attack concepts and not people. G.
Yeah, I just want to jump in there and say, I think Kofi is giving a little too much credit to these Europeans, and I can just give a few examples, right? In real time, they talk about Uncle Nearest, right? I'm sitting here drinking some whiskey, right? This is the guy who taught Jack Daniels how to make whiskey, but yet Jack Daniels got the credit. I can't name how many things Black folks are responsible for here in America that their European masters took the credit for. That's just a matter of fact in terms of American history. There's a lot of things that Blacks are responsible for that we created. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't the Europeans that created it. We created it. So it's like to say, it's like to say that Nike is, say, a American company, but everybody knows niggas wear Nike. Like, that's who make Nike cool. Like, it's the whole. It's a cultural. It's a cultural sneaker. Jordans are a cultural sneaker. Do white folks wear Jordans? Sure, but is it not undeniable that like Black folks are the reason why these shoes are what they are, like why sneaker culture is what it is? So it's like everybody can do the similar things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're known for those things. Like, just because you started something don't mean you perfected it or made it popular or made it like the reason why the world knows it as today. So it's like, nothing's new under the sun, but it's not what you do, but how it's done. You feel what I'm saying? It's just more like that. And that's Black culture. It's how we do things is what make us so unique, in my opinion. And I think you're giving a little too much credit to Europeans for things that we're responsible for as Black Americans.
Good point, G.
Can I finally respond? Because I didn't get the response.
But when you respond, can you also respond to, can you go more on about how Irish people taught us how to fry chicken? I haven't heard that before.
All right, so let's go. We're going to go Kofi, A Black.
I just did.
Johnny, we're going to give you the last word before we move on.
All
right. So what he said in the beginning, where he doesn't, in the beginning, he said he doesn't understand what's this pushback with FBA and why people don't all like FBA. So again, I think I said it before. I was a fan of Tariq Nasheed before he found FBA. So I have nothing against Tariq Nasheed as an entertainer, right? I had no problem with it. And I really didn't get the answer. My question is he a net positive or net negative as far as a leader? I didn't get my turn yet. But anyway, I said he's mixed, right? And the reason why I say he's mixed because he was standing up to white supremacy and he will call out bullshit. He had a Pan-African brotherly love for all Black people. If you're Black, that's it, right? We all one family. If you're a coon, you're a coon. It wasn't, oh, you're a Caribbean coon. Oh, you're an African coon, right? Once he started that, then my feelings towards him, because I have self-respect, just like how you think me saying calling a cult, you think all Black Americans are FBA, which they're not, but you took offense to me calling a cult. Just like you have enough self-respect as a Black man, you take offense to that. I'm a Black man too. So when someone, even if I had admiration for them, right, starts talking about other Black people, right? I go after Africans on my channel. That goes after Black Americans. I got Black Americans in my family. I don't do this divisive bullshit. So that's why I'm against FBA, because it came with FBA became with the xenophobia, the racism. That's why you see this pushback. And the example that you gave wasn't a very good example at all. I'm not saying Black people didn't contribute anything, right? We're famous for turning lemons into lemonade. That's the example that you gave. Black people didn't invent whiskey. You get, by your own definition, you said that Jack Daniels, a Black man, improved and made Jack Daniels, and a white man got a credit for it. Yes, that happens in this country all the time, right? I'm talking about black people, and you gave a perfect example. Y'all didn't invent whiskey, but you made it better. Right,
the filtration system, it's the process. It's the process in which the whiskey's made. That's what makes it what it is. So I mean, we want to get to the nuance of what makes Tennessee whiskey. Do you know what makes Tennessee whiskey versus Kentucky bourbon?
Whiskey is made with
versus Scotch,
Ireland and Scotland. It's like saying I made Scotch because I made Scotch better. That makes no sense.
No, do you know the difference though between Scotch whiskey, Irish whiskey, American bourbon, Canadian whiskey, Tennessee whiskey?
You get caught up in the trees, man.
That's the point.
It doesn't. But that wasn't my point. I'm not trying to take credit away from Black Americans who
you are though. You're saying just because they didn't invent whiskey, that what they invented within whiskey doesn't have any merit.
No. No, that's not what I'm saying. This is
what he's saying.
You gave a bad example.
Like it didn't sprout up.
Just like how Adam gave a bad example about 9/11, you giving a bad example. I'm saying Black Americans have an African culture and an American culture, right? That's what I'm saying. And from that, you guys made things under those two paradigms. You kept a lot of things, and you improved a lot of things. Right.
So why can't you get that good whiskey in Africa?
A good. This is what you need to do. A good example would have been George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver made several inventions that no white man ever made. That would be a perfect example of Black American genius. I get what you're saying. Because he made things with that no one made. It didn't come from Europe. It came from the mind of George Washington Carver. You saying, well, I made whiskey because I made a better version of it, makes no sense. That's ass backwards.
That's not true.
It makes sense to us, bro.
So what's the Black man in Ireland and Scotland that made whiskey? Go.
Again, there is a process in which whiskey is made.
I'm not talking about the process.
But then you don't even understand what you're talking about.
Hold on. Let me jump in. Like, we all kind of around the same age, right? When we were growing up, like, if you told me about a Cadillac Escalade, the first thing I'm thinking of is Funkmaster Flex or Shaquille O'Neal and how they would trick out their cars. Although they made those vehicles popular, although the extra sauce that they put on them is like, oh, I want a Cadillac now. I want an Escalade. We're like, you would be silly to say if Black people invented the Escalade or Black people invented the Cadillac. We didn't invent that. We made it better. We made it more prominent. But ultimately, our culture this
is not a one for one at all, because I'm not saying Black people.
Okay. Oh, now you get the nuance, G.
No. What y'all don't understand what whiskey is clearly, because there is a difference between Kentucky bourbon. I don't know shit
about whiskey. You know what I do know about whiskey? Niggas didn't invent it. That's a fact.
Hey, fellas, it sounds like we about to get hung up on this. And
nigga in a kilt made whiskey. So I know.
So Kofi,
responsible for Tennessee whiskey is what you're saying. A Black man is not responsible for what we know today as Tennessee whiskey.
You're saying it while you're saying
That's what you're saying. I'm not saying
you're saying it while you're saying it. Whiskey was improved into Tennessee whiskey, right?
And I also said that's what makes Black culture. I said that's what makes.
You're saying it while you're saying it.
That is a form of whiskey that did not exist. Like what part of this don't y'all understand? Like
made it better.
That's what I'm saying. Black culture is. Did I not say that from the start? Black people take things and make it better.
Hey fellas,
gave an example.
Hey fellas,
Did I not say that from the start?
G, you said it. Fellas, listen. Right now, this is like a classic example of both people talking past each other. I could literally just define out where both of y'all are talking about past each other. But it doesn't make a difference because y'all gonna get back to yelling at each other about whiskey. Let's move on to this video I got. Oh, my bad. We got A Black and Johnny. Land the plane really quickly.
Yeah.
As long as you have non-whiskey related commentary.
I'm drinking water tonight.
A Black, you muted.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, I would just kind of say that I was getting what both sides were saying. Like what I get what Kofi was saying is like Black culture is basically innovation, right? You know, we were put here, our language, a lot of our things were stripped from us, and we're in this barren land. And the only thing that we have is our knowledge of what we brought from Africa and what was secretly passed down to us. So from around that, we were introduced things and we innovated them and made them better. Some things were original that we created, but what makes the Black American culture so distinct and different from the rest of the world is that we were inserted into this diverse area there where no other homogeneous melanated people really experience the diversity that we experience. And so we took everything around us and we used it, we made it better, we inserted our African influence, we took the European influence, and like that is really the essence of Black culture is innovation, you know. From
is European influence? My bad. I'm a bad.
No, it's European is one part of the influence, but it's African influence, it's European, it's Irish, it's all of the different cultures that we're surrounded at based on the different region that you're in. It might be Italian or Puerto Rican in the north, but it's all of it. This is the melting pot of the world, you know. And what we do, we put the best seasoning in that pot. Like we take everything and we
are
make
the pot.
That's
Can I round it off?
I was saying. I was getting what both of y'all was saying. Like,
Yeah.
Hey,
fellas, Johnny, I'm gonna let you land. Again, two things. There has to be a part where if I'm gonna moderate, y'all have to like step back when y'all get into like y'all shouting matches. Two, again, if we disagree, let's write down our disagreements. And allow people to finish out their complete thought. Johnny.
So like, here's where I'm at, having, you know, kind of listened to the whole conversation flesh out. I think, you know, I think there's valid things on both points. I think we do have our own distinct, you know, culture here based on the circumstances. I think a lot of people get like it misconstrued where, yes, we did have like influences, but I think a lot of people underestimate our influence and what America is to this day and our contributions to not only just Black culture, but American culture. A lot of that comes from what we've did. I think the same influences that, you know, make y'all question what we've done here are the same influences if you go to Africa. You know, I think the same relationship that FBA has with Pan-Africanism is the same relationship American white supremacy has with colonialism. And I think those are two things that are very similar but different, just like Pan-African culture and FBA culture are two very distinct and different things that are, while related, not the same, but we could use those to work together the same way colonialism and white supremacy works together.
Can I ask a question real quick, Q? Because based on what Kofi is saying, I just want to make sure I'm understanding the logic. You would describe Caribbean culture exactly the same. Is that correct?
The same as what?
The way you describe Black American culture.
More or less, yeah.
What would be the more or less?
And this is what I think that a lot of people don't understand. Again, I'm not saying I know all, but have you ever read the book?
Hold up, but I want you to answer my question, please. The way you describe Black American culture and how it's created and how you reduced it to what you called it, wouldn't that same logic apply to Caribbean culture? Is that yes or no? You said more or less.
It's not a reduction. It's not a reduction. That's what it is. And yes, because again, it's the same white people. Y'all thinking it's different white people. It's the same white people that whipped your ass, whipped our ass. You was picking cotton, we was cutting cane. It's the same people.
So can I ask another question?
Same situation.
So can I ask another question?
Sure.
All right, so just to make sure we're on the same page, you said that you would describe the Caribbean culture the same as Black American culture by how you defined of African European influence, and it's exactly the same, correct?
Yes, if you study chattel slavery and what's happened in Caribbean was also chattel slavery, the same system was applied to us. The crop, only thing was different was the crop and the location. That's it.
And the form of colonialism, but that's another conversation. My follow-up question is, though, then why aren't the cultures the same?
You live in the 13 colonies, which is a part of colonialism, but okay, go ahead.
It's different forms of colonialism, but my question is, if they're so the same, then why aren't we the same culturally?
Specifically what? I mean, I can answer that. So even
the Caribbean, you said Caribbean and blacks were like by definition, it was all the same cultures. But when you look at the reality of Caribbean culture versus Black American culture, I wouldn't say they're the same. Would you agree with that?
Due to the history. So to me, that's like.
But the history that you said was the same, right?
Hold on.
Wait,
it's like
saying, be asking loaded questions. You gotta at least let them talk.
It's like saying, was the history in Virginia where Black people were the same history in Texas where Black people are? It's the United States. It should be the same, right? According to you.
No, but this is your words. These are your words, brother. This is your logic, not mine. That's why I'm trying to make sure I'm following to make sense of it. These are your words, and I'm making sure I'm following what you're saying. This is not what I'm saying.
It's just because the system is the same. Cell block D isn't the same as cell block C. It's still in fucking jail, though.
So then you're acknowledging that there's differences, that they're not exactly the same, is what you're saying.
You're talking about micro, little small differences. So let me explain within the Caribbean of why it's the same in the Caribbean and in America. So slavery, there was still slaves coming into the Caribbean, right? Versus in America, slaves stopped coming. So right there wasn't a constant African presence, right? So in the Caribbean and in Brazil was the first people that started the transatlantic slave trade, and they're the last people to stop the transatlantic slave trade. So there's more of an African presence there, and it's more due to our political economics, like Haiti, right? Haiti, they had the first successful and only Black revolution against white people, right? But that's due to where they are. It's an island. Same thing in Jamaica. They had the Maroons, right? They were able to fight white people off. So in the Caribbean, it's different. It was under the same system, but due to our geographical location, right, and how things were working out, that's why it's the same way.
But it's different. You just said, right?
Different.
My bad.
But in America,
it's different.
The challenges that you have, that's like me saying, I would never say, well, like Tariq, she like to say, we always fight. We don't run, whatever. But that's like me. If I was disingenuous and being a bastard, I'll say, well, you guys don't got your freedom. Y'all still under the yoke of white supremacy, right? That'll be fucked up to say, because the history and the geographical location and the things that you have to fight are totally different. So it's two things could be right at the same time.
You lost me. You lost me. You lost me.
So I don't understand how I lost you.
because your logic's not logicking. It's like
wait, hold up. Hold up. Just real quick. Like, are we sitting on this podcast and acting like brothers and sisters from South Carolina are locking step with dudes from like Compton, California?
That's what it sounds like to me. That's
why if you're gonna go with your loaded question, G, like that's essentially what you're saying.
How is it a loaded question when he made a statement? I'm asking him about his words. He did say that.
G, like that's what you're saying.
Rewind the tape, bro. He said that it was exactly the same. He said that.
No, I didn't say it was exactly the same. I said it's different. Two things can be right at the same time.
Hold up.
You said it was the same, bro, or you did not.
This is what you're saying.
Well, I gave you an explanation of how it's different in little nuances. Of course, it's not the same. That's why I said you could have someone from Virginia, Black people in Virginia, and Black people in Texas are two different type of people. You wouldn't say they're the same. They're not the same. You're not going to say people from Virginia
but that is
have
what
the same struggle from people from Texas.
G is saying that, like within the menagerie of Black America, although that people from Virginia and New York are completely different from Black people in Washington and Texas and California, that there's still a similar link in there somewhere that is completely distinctive than from everybody else in the diaspora. Like that's what you're saying, G. You're saying even within this menagerie, like I promise you, go to Compton, California, and try to do what you're doing in the South. No, it doesn't fly there. Like, bro, what are you wearing? Anytime you go up to New York, like, bro, why are you saying y'all and this and this? So even within this country that we live in, hey, man, I don't know what y'all do down there, but cool. I don't know what y'all do up there, cool. Hey, man, y'all dudes out west is crazy, right? So there is differences.
I never said what you're saying. I said it. Just
he never said that at all.
I never said that.
So okay, so there is a difference amongst the groups that are already here, right? But there's still a similar link that ties it all together, right? Please say that I'm saying something that's silly.
No, I want to be clear that
there's no link between you and the brother in Compton.
There is.
Oh, okay.
But listen to what I'm saying, because what you just went on, I didn't say though. Whatever you just responded to, I didn't say that. Like I swear, like I didn't say those words at all.
I get that. So
it's called a straw man.
With as big as this country is, right? With as big as America is, and you understand that there's a similar link between you, a brother in New York, a brother in Texas, heck, even the displaced person who's from America living in Germany right now with their own separate subculture.
What point are you trying to make, bro? Just because I didn't say anything about that.
Wait, hold up. Like, I'm getting there.
Okay.
Do you not think that there's a similar link between people of the diaspora and people here?
People of the diaspora, meaning like people from Uganda. Right, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
You proved my point. Never mind. Go ahead.
So G, I guess this is where
Alex, you are very dismissive.
I'm not dismissive.
No, you're very dismissive and rude.
You're playing Q.
Hey fellas,
go ahead, Q.
Fellas, so if I was to try to attempt to bridge some of the understanding or lack thereof, this is also probably like one of the best.
I don't even know what he responded to.
I'm about to get there. One of the best.
Because it doesn't go against your narrative, but go ahead.
When it comes down to people talking past each other and trying their best not to understand each other. But so G, what he's responding to is your lining of questioning, not specifically what you said, but where your lining of questioning led him to be and what you kind of like deduced from your lining of questioning to Kofi.
It was Kofi's logic, right?
Well, you was asking him questions. That's how he got to wherever he landed at.
But he didn't put words in Kofi's mouth. He asked him.
No, all right. So you asked him if everything, if both, if Caribbean and American slavery were the same. And then he said more or less, and then he said, then you asked him to define it even more from there, and then you said if it's the same, then why are there cultural differences between Caribbeans and Americans? Like that was the lining of question. So what Alex was responding to is directly what you deduce from that, where he's saying, well, if that's true, why is there a difference between black people in New York and black people in Florida? Because if not, then everybody will be culturally homogeneous. Like that's kind of where this whole entire thing is at.
But we know how black people migrated. Like there was a great migration from the South to all parts of the United States. Like there's a history and a track record of how black people started in a certain pocket of the United States. And then over time, there were migrations that led us to up in the Midwest, Chicago, St. Louis.
But we're talking about like cultural differences.
Didn't start
and which
migration out of
the answer to that question is nestled, like why Caribbean culture is different than American culture is the same reason why New York culture is different than Compton culture. There are similarities that you can point to, but then there's differences because of geographic location and distance and time.
But
customs that would develop out of that.
My point in asking the question the way I asked it was because if when it comes to we're talking about black culture, and then I'm like, okay, well, what's Caribbean culture, right? And when I'm asking what's Caribbean culture, you're telling me that it's the exact same system.
You didn't ask me what Caribbean culture was.
I did ask. I did ask that.
No, you didn't.
I didn't get an answer.
No, you didn't.
We can rewind it back, but I didn't get an answer. And when it comes to talking about like black culture, and you said it's just a mix of what Africans do and what Europeans do. And I'm like, okay, well, that would be the same for Caribbean culture, but yet we're not the same culturally when you compare Black American culture to Caribbean culture. Like, even if you talk about black culture in LA versus black culture in North Carolina,
right?
There's still like you said, a underlying like similar thing that everybody.
Do you think that there are similarities between Caribbean culture and black culture?
Not the same way it is between black culture and
of course not, because I think that there's a bigger
Florida.
There's a larger but But still, do you think that there are like market similarities between Caribbean culture and Black culture
Black
in
American.
general? Or you think that like they're as comparable as Irish culture and Black culture?
Yeah.
Black American.
Oh,
culture.
okay?
Wait, are you kidding me right now?
Nah.
All right,
You guys think that African American culture developed in a vacuum all by itself?
So
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Caribbean culture and Florida, Miami culture has zero in common, but Florida culture has more in common with New York culture. Like, what are you talking about?
Okay, so you're talking about Florida, so okay, now Florida, as we already said, no, because Florida is a Caribbean state. It's
so is New York.
So is New York. You are right, but
I lived in both. I lived all up the West Coast. I lived in Boston. I lived in New York. I lived in Virginia. I lived in Georgia. I lived in Florida. Right. So when I'm talking, I'm not talking from what I've heard. I'm talking about what I experienced. Right. When I was living in Virginia. Right. Again, you guys want to know I'm from the Caribbean without asking me. I'll be with my Black American friends. And they talk about their family from the South. Oh, them country bumpkins. They ain't even know blah, 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 blah. They're not up on da, 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 da. Those are their cousins.
The question was, are we like African?
Between them, there's a difference because of way they grow up, right? So when people left the South, right? They went to Boston, went to New York. The culture changed. But guess what? They're still from the South. Right, my Black American friends like, yo, where your people from? Oh, my family from North Carolina or whatever. But they don't sound like the people from North Carolina. They don't act like the people from North Carolina.
Hey, G, before you hop in, I'm gonna let you go. I'm not even responding. Quick housekeeping. Again, I think that we probably hit our high so far. We got about 160, 170 between both platforms in the chat. Hit the like button between both channels. Again, it's streaming on G-ish Podcast and the To Be Fair Show. Make sure you hit that like, comment, and subscribe on both. And keep the chats running up. Super chats are available. If you would like your comment actually read on screen and commented to, super chat us, and we'll get to it. G.
Yeah, when you said, do I think, say, Black American culture is more like saying similar to Irish culture than Caribbean culture. Like what I'm saying is that I don't think Caribbean culture is that similar to Black American culture. I don't think that they are that similar. Is just the point I'm making here. So, whereas if you look at Black culture across the United States, there is way more similarity between Black culture throughout the United States than what we would call Black culture in the Caribbean. And you're not going to define Black culture in the United States by the state of Florida, bro. Like, you're just not going to do that.
Well, I'm going to ask a simple question. Do you think, hold on, do you think that the Black culture in Toronto and the Black culture in New York is more similar or less similar than the Black culture in New York and the Black culture in Texas?
I know for sure that I've heard folks from Toronto who go to New York talk about how they didn't know what racism was until they got to New York. And so what I'm saying is that because we are American and because slavery was spread from New York all the way to Texas.
Gee, that's not what I asked you. I'm
answering your question.
They're more similar.
You don't like getting cut off, Alex, but yet you like doing that shit to everybody else. So you're gonna have to learn to chill and not cut other niggas off if you don't like getting cut off. You can't be so passionate, but then cut niggas off. That's all I'm saying.
I apologize.
You can't just be so passionate and cut niggas off. Because of what I understand about from people who are from Toronto themselves, it is, I would say that the Black culture in New York is more similar to what you would get in a Black neighborhood in Texas than you would in, say, a Black neighborhood in Toronto. That is my opinion.
I also want to add to that real quick. I went to Toronto. I have friends in Toronto, and there was always racism there because there's a bunch of French people there. So the racism wasn't imported from the States to Toronto. There's a lot of racism in Canada.
I'm just telling you what the Canadian said.
Gotcha.
I'm telling you what a Black Canadian said.
Me too. I mean, like I'm just telling you what I heard.
Well, it sounds like y'all both going off of, what is it, anecdotal evidence. G, I actually want to ask a couple questions with the statement that you just gave. All right, so you said you don't believe that there's much, if any, similarities between Caribbean and Black culture in general. And so I guess I'll ask like a first question would be, so do you think that slavery and its impacts on like that minority group between the two countries have had like any like similar impacts at all?
Similar impact in that there is a white superiority complex that exists.
Right.
Throughout.
So they've been under the
imperialistic rule. These
right.
imperial powers, right? I think because of that, like there is a white superiority mindset when it comes to whether it be like a colonial mindset, but they're different though, because on those Caribbean islands, the population, the percentage of Europeans there versus the percentage of Europeans here, that's why I think it's a big difference.
Like that would bleed itself to have like differences in culture for sure. So like continuing on, do you believe that pretty much the people on both of those islands came off the boat at just different stops, but they came from pretty much the exact same spot? Same place, i.e. Africa, wherever they got imported from Africa. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I do acknowledge that that's possible, but I also acknowledge that slaves came from one island and were shipped to North America. Like the transatlantic movement of slaves is a real thing. I've never disagreed with that overall.
Right. Just a quick. All right. So in essence, the answer to that would be yes, right? Yeah. So do you believe that any of those customs could be seen to this day, or remnants of it, i.e. whether we talk about like soul food, and there are market similarities between some Caribbean soul food and American soul food. Whether you want to change out yams and sweet potatoes, whether you want to talk about macaroni and cheese, you want to talk about fried chicken, or the way the chicken is like there are market similarities. We look at dance. There are market similarities between Caribbean culture and Black culture that any other culture that you want to like go to, it doesn't really exist specifically. Like if you say Irish or something like that. You don't count any of those as like similarities when it comes down to cultural?
Sure, we can say that there are some similarities. I just don't think they're more similar than they are different. I think that there are more differences than similarities. Are there?
So what do you think like the biggest differences are?
I just think in general, the mindset of a Black American, the way that Caribbeans often treat family is different, in my opinion, than Black American standards. Caribbean families are often more like keep it in the family than say Black Americans. I think Black American families are more like, okay, you 18, you get out the house. Black American families don't necessarily expect moms to move in with them and stuff like that. That's not, some do, but that's not really a cultural standard, in my opinion. Whereas when
that's
you look,
what you mean by keep it in the, okay, I got you.
Yeah, like, but when you look at like Caribbean,
so what you're saying, they're more family oriented than Black Americans?
I would say that they have a different view of their family structure than Black Americans. Now, I'm going to say more or less family oriented, but I just think that they view family different than how we view family.
Okay, so aside from like the family piece, is there any other differences that you could think of, like major differences that you would lean to say that they're not very similar?
Yeah, I would say, like, again, I would say because these countries aren't like America isn't the Caribbean. So just off the fact that like we are what shape American, like we're not the same. Like we have free markets, enterprise, we've had Black Wall Street, like we've thrived as minorities, whereas these people have been majorities in their lands. Like it's a different mindset and approach, in my opinion, when you are growing up somewhere as a minority versus when culturally you are the majority. That in itself just speaks to like how we're different culturally.
Gotcha. I guess maybe we have to redefine culturally, because I guess I'm usually thinking of like music, food, literature, and like the revolution.
Like one thing that G said, like keep it in the family, like maybe like some of the brothers and sisters that you probably know, G, but like I can honestly say that my mom, my aunties, my uncles have all shared the same opinion. Nah, you 18, you gotta get up out my house. That is a thing. Like that is not like.
So you're Caribbean?
That's being amalgamated to American society. That's the rule in American society.
And no, like even back home, like, hey, like get out. Like that is how everything is. Like I understand what you're saying, G, but like I don't think that we can go off of like pure anecdote because it could easily just be like, well, that's not necessarily the case for anybody that I know. So I think what ultimately I want to say is like if you're trying to find differences, you can find them. Whereas if you're trying to find similarities, I think there's a preponderance of them, more than enough to kind of understand where there is a link and what we can build upon moving forward. But that's all I had to say.
Let me respond to also what he said. He said, and this is another FBA trope, right? That he says, well, we're under colonial rule and we worship white supremacy. And I think we had this conversation last week. And again, it makes this for you to point the finger. You got 10 fingers pointing back at you. Again, I'm from a historical standpoint, we're under white supremacy control, right? And this is where I spoke about the white supremacy in those countries is proximity, right? We don't have a Trayvon Martin. We don't have white police looking upside our head. We don't got Karen saying you can't sell water. We don't have the majority. We have exactly. So how does that understand how we worship in white supremacy? We have no one to prove anything to. We got no white ass to kiss other than the ones in America. So if anything, I'm not saying that people in the Caribbean don't have a colonial mindset. And I'll use a real quick example of it. So I'm from Guyana. So during my mother was around the time of independence, we fought our independence and we kicked the white people out, right? They were doing because it's an English colony. They were doing the English national anthem, God Save the Queen, and that bullshit. They also created their own Guyanese independence. My mother told me they were singing both of them. I'm like, why the hell would you sing both of them? You're an independent country. And he's like, you know what? That is true. I always questioned that growing up. But so some people are still colonized minded a little bit, but it's different. There's no white people to worship. So when you say we worship white people, that makes no sense. We don't have no one to prove anything to. In America, I understand you may have a weak-minded African American and say, well, maybe kiss this white person's ass so they won't kick my ass. You know what I'm saying? So you may have people like that. So when you're saying worshiping white people and worship white people, like that makes no sense because there's nobody there to prove anything.
I said white superiority complex. That's what I said. White superiority complex. Worshiping white people is a bit extreme. So are you going to deny that these former
what white people are we worshiping?
White superiority complex. You admit that white supremacy is a thing, correct? But a white superiority complex is not. Like it's synonymous essentially. Like
no. Well, what again? What you're saying is true, but at the same time, when you say that, I'm looking at the where you're coming from the perspective you're coming from. You're only coming from a Black American perspective.
What makes you say that? What makes you say that I only have a Black American perspective?
I have two perspectives because I'm from the Caribbean and I was raised here, so I have two perspectives, right? That are of a lived experience. So when I go to Jamaica and I go to Guyana, I don't have to worry about someone proving something to a white person or do anything like this. Hardly any white people there, right? Is the mindset still there? A little bit colonial mindset up to this day and age? Not really, no. But if you go to America, there's a lot of you got your Jesse Lee Petersons and all these other coons that are just doing it. So when you say from your Black that independent, free Black country worships white supremacy anyway, is a very
because you still bow down to your British daddy.
Yeah, bro. There's still
you still lay down to your French daddies. Yeah, like what are we talking about?
That's these people. Okay, we're going a little bit ad hominem. It's okay to be in your feelings.
All of your resources.
number
Bro,
one, you're talking emotionally because number one, it's not a French colony. You're not listening.
There's a lot of French colonies in the Caribbean.
I'm talking about my perspective. Stay on point.
Jamaica is still part of the
country
British
I'm from
Commonwealth.
is an
It's still part of
independent
the British
country.
Commonwealth, bro.
It wasn't always independent though.
Since the 60s, right? And I have an embassy, and there's a part of the United Nations. You don't have an embassy because your embassy is America and your white daddy. So don't play with me like that.
See,
all right. Hey, fellas.
That's why I'm the FBA killer. That's why I'm the FBA killer.
You got to
Hey, G.
Yo.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break. Share screen, and we'll get into this. We need a quick breather, quick break.
You're my brother anyway, G. You're my brother anyway. If you don't think I am, you're my brother.
Man. I don't know. That sound. Hey, man, you sound very passionate that you don't fuck with niggas, bro. That's what you sound like. Ruckus right now.
I don't fuck with niggas. I fuck with black people. You're right.
Yeah. We can be whatever you say, but you know, I think I'm seeing through the mask right now.
Right, G. You think Jamaicans are better than us, bro? You said you were FBA killer, whatever that means.
Like, right, this nigga bang, don't he? I didn't know this shit was a gang. Like, oh my goodness.
That nigga King Von.
You got the you said pull up this the joint.
Light district. He wants to know why the foundational Black Americans don't like Caribbean blacks. Honestly, you should probably ask their quote unquote leader. I think their quote unquote leader would have a better answer for you. But as the voice of Garveyism in the 21st century, and as the voice for revolutionary Pan-Africanism in the 21st century, I do not support that organization or its rhetoric, nor do I support the other organizations that are similar somewhat in scope, function, and philosophy. I believe in the total and unconditional unification and liberation of all African people in the world. I do not put conditions on my loyalty. I do not put conditions on my unity. I personally believe that all these organizations were thought up by hustlers and opportunists. I think some of them are funded by the power structure to divide Africans against Africans. I do not see anything good coming out of these organizations. None of them have a nationalist bone in their body. Most of them just want to beg the white man for reparations while they hate on African immigrants, but do nothing about the real groups that are stealing and robbing from Black people. They don't say nothing about the rainbow community. They don't say nothing about the white Latino community. They don't say anything at all about the feminists, but yet they want to demonize and criminalize African immigrants. I do not support it. All African immigrants are my family. They are my brothers and sisters. I have no issues with them. Black people are very comfortable at the bottom of the barrel. Black people are very comfortable being at the bottom of the totem pole in America. Negroes are comfortable at the bottom of the social power structure as long as they got a cell phone, a car, a place to sleep, and they can buy some fried chicken and go to church. They cool. Negroes don't need much. All Negroes need is some fried chicken, a cell phone, a weave, a white girlfriend, some Jordans, a nice car, and they good. So it ain't just the leader's fault, it's the people's fault. But I appreciate David Banner. I appreciate Dr.
All right, I think that seems like enough of the conversation to get the gist of it. I'm gonna throw the A Black threw that into the chat. So I'm gonna let you lead off the conversation.
Yeah, man, I thought he kind of gave a good explanation of like how I feel about really kind of the divisiveness of the whole movement, the leader behind the movement, and you know, the more that I've been talking to you all and researching it and getting on Twitter and kind of seeing these conversations are heavily focused on attacking African immigrants and Caribbean immigrants. I'm just like, you know, we all the same, and like, what are African immigrants, you know, taking from us? Because I keep hearing this thing about, oh, they're coming in and taking this and taking that. So I looked up these stats, and so in the U.S. in the past year, we've had 62.5 million Hispanic immigrants, only 4.6 million Black immigrants, and 22.4 million Asian immigrants. So like the African immigration isn't even scratching the surface enough to really affect or take anything from us. You know, it's like, so why are we focusing our attacks on our brothers and not like building relationships and connections with them, and still able to be focused on the things that we created and that we built here? Like, it's like we can't walk and chew gum at the same time. Like, we have to denounce them completely, while at the same time, you know, creating this what's becoming, I feel like, a hateful organization. You know, it's attacking each other, it's attacking African people, it's almost intellectualized self-hate in a way. You know, like, these are the kids that used to pick on African kids and Jamaican kids elementary and call them ashy and call them poor and stuff. Now they're grown up, now they got a little degree, and now they found a rhetoric to kind of assuage and push that hatred out. But it's like, you hate in the mirror. Like, why do you hate? Like, we have differences, and our differences are what make us stronger. You know, I feel like the conversation earlier kind of shift from influence to similarities and differences, but you know, we've all been influenced by the different colonial powers. And you know, as Kobe was saying, it was a more heavily African influence because of the way the slave trade went in the Caribbean and in Brazil, and because of people staying homogeneous in the African colonies, and because of the way Black Americans have different diverse cultures surrounding them. We all had a different trajectory of our cultures, but like, we all are still pretty much the same. So, you know, I haven't seen anything positive for real come out. Like, do we want reparations and need reparations? Of course, yeah. Do I realistically think we'll get them? Honestly, not. Like, because if I'm them and I'm thinking in the mind of the enemy, and I'm looking at the 12% of the population who don't really own nothing, who don't got no police force, who don't got no army, who don't really got nothing to force me to give them anything, you know, why would I? Why would I put them ahead? So I just thought that was a kind of good clip to kind of show, you know, my frame of like mind, where like, I don't want to get into really arguing with FBA and these people, because I've seen a lot of people kind of feed off of that, and it's counterproductive. I say the same thing with feminism. When I ask the feminism movement, the Black feminism, like, all right, what have y'all really done and accomplished for women in the last 10 or 15 years? Or y'all become a men-hating organization? So it's just like, people find intellectualized ways to hate each other and hate the factions that, you know, they really don't like. And this is another one of those to me.
Trey, whichever one of y'all want to hop in first. I think it's fair for y'all to respond. And try and respond as close to the points that he made. I thought that he made some really, really interesting points, especially the idea of the minority statistic and who we're choosing to actually push a lot of our energy towards. Fellas,
Go ahead, Trey.
Man, yo, G, you've been putting in work, but I just want to throw it right here. I don't understand why recognizing our own separate lineage is hate. And it seems like when we talking about FBA kids roasting on the other African kids on the playground, but we're not talking about the parents telling those kids to stay away from the kata, which means cotton picker, which I think is a bigger issue than kids calling another kid African booty scratcher or whatever. And why is it that Chinese can recognize their distinction from Japanese? Caribbean, you know, you have your different islands there that have their own distinction. Even Mexican, you can't call them a Puerto Rican, they have their own distinction. But when Black Americans recognize our own distinction, now all of a sudden it's a problem. I think it's because a lot of the people benefit who are non-FBA, they benefit from this blanket blackness because it means they get to have credit for everything we accomplish. And then they are over here and they benefit from our fighting to make a place for where we were, were able to free ourselves from slavery. We were able to fight for our civil rights and everything that we did in the streets. And I think when we try to push our culture forward and we have to slow down to accommodate folks with outside allegiances, it becomes like an undermining thing that if we're trying to uplift our own unique culture and we have like foreigners downplaying and undermining our achievements and while bigging up what they have back at home where they aren't at, it's just that
So Trey, I do want you to still
got one
address
little
like
response.
his statement. I don't think that you addressed his statement at all. And I guess
I
to
just
make sure that we and I got you, A Black. Because I think we tend to do this almost circle conversation, and circle conversations make my brain hurt. I don't think any. So I'll allow anybody that doesn't agree with this. Please say it right now. But it
well,
doesn't seem like anybody disagrees with black people, or let's say FBA, in like the concept of what FBA is. Like the idea that there are black people that have a different experience than other people, i.e., like Caribbeans or like wherever else you want to say, and that's his own distinct ethnic group to an extent. I don't think anybody has an issue with that.
Umar
I think
does.
we
That's what
do.
I'm responding to.
Wait,
Umar,
who does have an issue? Does anybody have an issue with that?
Kofi has an issue with that.
and so
I
does
don't have
Umar.
an issue with that in its totality. I do agree that Black Americans have a unique experience here in America. Yes, I do. But when they start gaslighting them,
All right, but let's not move to that part yet, because I think that if we don't like address that and get that part, we're gonna keep circling that, and then we just like keep wasting time addressing that specific point. So like we all are in agreement that like black people and the idea of what FBA actually means and stands for, like the idea of the lineage of it, everybody agrees that it makes sense and nobody is hating on that. Typically, it seems like both people are talking about the other side and the insults or the degradation and the taking advantage part, right?
Yeah.
That seems to be the exact thing in which, again, I don't think that you addressed A Black's claim when he spoke about the minority thing. But A Black, you had a
I just
something that you
wanted to
want to.
respond because I know we say a lot. Trey was mentioning, how come other groups can distinguish themselves, and he mentioned the Mexicans and the Asians. Like they have countries, they have land masses they can claim, they have ownership. Like we've been here and we still own less than 1% of the land. So
So we don't
I
exist.
wait, hold on, wait. I agree with the concept of FBA. Just like we talked about 2 weeks ago with fraternities and sorority. The concept is nice. The concept of feminism is nice in the beginning. What happens if these movements evolve into hazing, evolve into men hating, evolve into African and Caribbean hating? So it's the de-evolution that I disagree with, not the initial concept of these groups. Like, yeah, I think we need reparations. Yeah, I want to claim what Black Americans built through slavery and stuff. But let's not dismiss how these groups have devolved and become counterproductive and a new place for people to kind of project their hate in different areas.
Man,
So-
what
Well,
you
can I
said-
add something? Can I add something as far as like because that's what I was gonna get to as far as like the difference between our struggle and the Caribbean is it's nationalism. You said they have homelands. Even Kofi said you have two different experience. You have two different perspectives. You got your Jamaican and then you have your American. And as a foundational Black American, that sounds a little condescending and because it's like it sounds almost like you're saying, well, because I have this other perspective, I know more than you and I can talk. And that's where I think a lot of the FBA and a lot of the where we get lost of track. And I agree with you, A Black, as far as like when we do have these movements, a lot of time the people who benefit from it aren't who the movement was originally founded from. So I can agree with that too. But that to me it leads to the question, how do we help each other out? How do Black Americans as a people without a nation or the nation that we built has kind of been hijacked from us and we're not in control of it? And how can the people who have their own nationality, how can we help each other out? And I guess that's where we should be, lean, instead of trying to fight and call each other names. Like, we all really want the same goal. And it's like, we should be focusing on, even if it's not the FBA movement, how can Black Americans kind of get more sovereignty in the land that we're at?
Right. And hold on.
I'm not trying. No, I don't say.
Hold on, fellas. Let's try and stay focused real quick. Because I do want Trey and G to answer the question. And it lends to where Johnny started wrapping up towards again. Because I think that this is a good point to build off of as we're having this conversation. When you speak about like the idea of like minorities and like the place that African and Caribbean minorities have in the scheme of being able to be taking anything from Black people, and the idea of how there's so many other minorities that markedly are taking opportunities from Black people. Why there would be a need to have such a hyper focus on this smaller minority. Yeah, I love to get your opinion.
The reason, because they can play us like Barack Obama. He didn't have any connections to Black Americans, as far as like he didn't look out for us. He did more for the LGBTQ community, and he wasn't a Black American. He was half African, half white. And then we have Kamala Harris, who also represents Black people. Well, not represent. They put her up there as a Black person, and she doesn't do anything for Black people. So when they constantly use people who have our shared skin color and then say it's a Black advocate, and then they don't do anything for us, and we recognize that trend. And even on some of these reparations boards, we have people, some of them saying that we don't need our reparations. It seems like it's a very convenient strategy for the dominant society to bring people who are more malleable and more, they don't have the same grudge against white supremacists that we do. You bring them over there and you put them in positions of power, and then give them the civil rights that Black Americans fought for because they're less hostile. And this is documented. Even Shirley Chisholm talked about her family got housing in the New York area quicker than Black Americans because they wanted them because they were less hostile. So that's why they are not a bigger threat, but they are a unique threat.
Unique, but do you think that in that same like if you say that immigrant got housing quicker than Black people, do you think that the 4x Hispanic and the 2x Asians rate of immigrants would have gotten housing before Blacks as well?
Yes, but it would be less obvious because they can still say they're doing something for Black people while helping foreign Black people and not helping the people over here. Versus if it's Hispanics, then it's a lot more difficult to conceal.
Gotcha. So it's not necessarily about changing the system; it's changing the optics of the system.
For them, it is that they are able to use the optics to hide their hand. They're able to still not do anything for Black people while claiming they are, because they have a Black immigrant who, some of them are through propaganda that the West puts out, and they constantly demonizing us. A lot of them adopt negative stereotypes about Black people and think that we're in this position because of we're just they just demonize us. So
and you think that a majority of these immigrants that are coming in are taking advantage of these said systems, like of these African and whatchamacallit?
I think the majority would not hesitate to take I
guess I'm trying to see number wise how impactful is this? Like, are we focusing on a hyper minority and their impact and like some figureheads and not actually what can change like Black people and like the status of, or not like the living conditions of actual Black people? But Alex, you had your hands raised.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point, Q, where these conversations are very circular, because oftentimes we are addressing things that no one is saying, that no one is purporting. Like you could do this show 10 other times with 10 other Black men, and they're all going to be like, no, I don't agree with that. I agree with essentially what Trey and G is saying. The problem is whenever we're talking is as if like, wait, if it's a foul for me to even remotely talk about my experience growing up here, living here, working here, being side by side with people that you would have called FBA, if that's a foul, how do you then get the privilege and honor and the unabashed goal to pretty much talk about experiences that one, you don't have, one, you never lived, places you never been? I think that's where the frustration comes from, because you're not even like talking about it like as if like, oh, this is what I think. No, you're 100% wholly putting your entire worldview, no matter how incomplete it is, on an entire group of people, and then in the most unpositive light. To kind of address what Trey is saying, I think that this is a convenient thing that often gets said, where there's this specter of Black immigrants haunting FBA Americans, and they're just around the corner waiting to take your job, waiting to take your opportunity. To me, that is a very, very convenient, I guess, myth that really doesn't stand up to any numbers, really doesn't stand up to any like actual.
Why don't you ask me the numbers, bro? Instead of saying there aren't any, why don't you ask me?
Well, I was just asking you that. So what are the numbers of immigrants taking black jobs?
Hold on, Q. I didn't get to finish.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah, what I'm saying is factually, there doesn't ring out to anything nowhere true. However, what is actually true is how, if we're talking about a tether being someone who's coming here to undermine the black person's, like a black person's progression within this country, we need to also address and talk about how this country undermines black people everywhere in the diaspora, everywhere in continental Africa. So if we're talking about undermining, there's black military troops right now over in other countries occupying those places. Historically, there are Black Americans, period, invading these countries. There are Black Americans who are working for the CIA right to this day. We're not talking about imaginary Black people taking away something from you. I'm talking about real Black people working for the CIA who are operatives in these countries and throwing over governments and importing guns and destabilizing entire regions. But we're not talking about that. And no one in the diaspora is calling anyone a tether here, because it's not helpful. It's divisive holistically. So if I need to wrap up what I'm saying, Trey, if you're talking about undermining something, you need to then address why people that are FBA are in government positions, ambassadors, generals, everything you can imagine, and they're in positions by the white power structure that you're talking about everybody around the world is subservient to. You need to talk about people who actually get fucking paychecks from this white supremacy structure to actually overthrow governments, to actually destabilize black countries. But that's all I gotta say.
Can I respond to Johnny? I mean, I was trying to get certain things in, a lot of things that were said. So Johnny, you pretty much said that when I said I have two perspectives, I'm sorry if I came across that if I know more than you. I just mean what I actually said. It means that I'm not someone just from the Caribbean talking about how life in America is. I'm actually in America. I grew up in America. I've been here since I was 3. Right. So that's what I mean by two perspectives versus someone who's a Black American and they never really had any other Black friends from Africa or the Caribbean. Right. So that's why I'm talking about two perspectives. So if you want to say, well, that means I know more than you, I guess I wouldn't put it that way. But what I'm trying to say is, like, I've been, again, you guys, if I didn't tell you, you think I was American. I'll be around some Americans and they'll say something foul about a Caribbean person. You know what I'm saying? I had family that happened to my sister one time, right? And then her homegirl was on something like telling the other girl, like, yo, chill. Like, you know, Allison's, you know, she's from yada, yada, yada. Oh, my bad. And she started backtracking. You see what I'm saying? So that's an experience that you had. That's like a white person saying, well, oh, I understand the Black struggle because I'm fucking a white dude. I'm fucking a Black person. I know. No, it's not the same. You know what I'm saying? So another thing I want to say that's been on FBA Trey was saying, basically, it keeps saying, again, he says, I say a lot of lies 100 miles a minute. But again, and this is how, again, I'm not trying to throw any ad hominem attacks, but what you said goes to show you don't even know your own American history. To say that we fought I said this on my channel before. We fought for you to get here is total bullshit, right?
We did. The
And the fact
Immigration
that
Act.
you know certain things and you can't link the things is one thing to have knowledge, but don't.
Why don't you ask me instead of telling me I don't know?
Talking, man.
But
Bro,
you're not even asking. You're making assertions, and you're not. Why don't you ask me if I know it before you tell me I don't?
Let me know when I can talk, bro.
I mean, you're gonna keep putting words in my mouth, bro. It's like hard. I got.
Hey, G, do me a favor. I'm about to pull up the timer. This will just make this so much easier. But Kofi, go ahead and finish off.
I would have he keeps cutting me off. It's like
no, I got you. Trey, we're coming to you next.
Go ahead, FBA.
So when he said, well, we fought for you to get here. That's bullshit, because no one in the civil rights movement fought for Black people, Africans, to get here. Black Americans had their own struggles, right? You had no power for even to get rights for yourself. Why would you do that? That's one. Two, Black people, Caribbeans and Africans were here alongside with Black Americans fighting for, you had Harry Belafonte, a Jamaican, right? You had Stokely Carmichael, a Trinidadian. You had Kwame Nkrumah, an African, all alongside, hand in hand with Caribbeans, Africans, white people fighting for civil rights. So that fake patting yourself on the back like you did something that you never did is an insult to Black Americans and Caribbeans. That's one. Two, when you said you were eating off of you, what package do Black Americans have for Caribbean people and African people to say, oh, a Black American gave me money when I came off the boat and the plane, and now I'm gonna give him the middle finger and undermine him? That shit doesn't fucking exist. Everyone that I know is the immigrant that came here, someone sponsored them and they had to work their ass off. They had to work their ass off in order to get where they are. Y'all didn't give us shit. So stop that fucking lie. I'm sorry, I'm cursing or whatever, but I'm just sick and tired of hearing that lie, and it's being spouted like it's the truth. You show me what Black Americans gave directly to a Black immigrant for you to give you the finger and just walk off. It doesn't exist. I'll wrap it up.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because I just want to make sure I heard him correct. Like, I just want to make sure I heard what he said correct.
Go ahead.
Are you saying that Caribbeans and white folks are responsible for the civil rights movement, not Black Americans? Like, is that what you're saying?
I don't know if you have selective hearing, man. Sounds like you got selective hearing.
I want to make sure I hear what you said.
I'll repeat it again. Black Americans, Caribbean people, I even dropped names. People, Shirley Chisholm, Stokely Carmichael, Harry Belafonte, Kwame Nkrumah were alongside Black Americans fighting for civil rights. Are you gonna say I didn't mention those? I didn't mention Black Americans?
No, but you said those words, and then you said I'm tired of Black Americans taking credit for stuff they have nothing to do with. I'm just making sure
because FBA Trey said that we fought for you to get here. That's a FBA bullshit ass unhistorical trope.
Okay, y'all help.
So are you saying so you don't have to prove to me that Harry Belafonte wasn't fighting for civil rights? You have to prove to me that Stokely Carmichael wasn't alongside with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King fighting for civil rights. The burden of proof is on you, not me, because you made that statement.
Bro, yes, some of y'all helped. There were a few of y'all in the
don't minimize. Don't minimize it. Because if you can't say that we fought for you to get here, and now that you've been caught in a lie that you don't know your own damn history, you're gonna say, you're moving the goalpost again. You've been proven wrong. Stop saying that.
So
hey, Trey, it's your go. Trey, it's on you.
That's what I'm saying. So you're saying I'm the one minimizing contributions from Caribbeans, but you're not minimizing. You just told us whiskey wasn't that much of an invention. You want to take kind of credit for that, and then you were talking about we have to give credit to the immigrants for, I guess, the civil rights movement. You want to give them credit there. You also overplay Jamaica, because there's still a commonwealth They're still a member of the British Commonwealth. I just looked that up. They got their independence, but it's still a member of the British Commonwealth. I just saw them crying when the Queen died. I also know that the richest people in Jamaica are not even black people. So this whole thing where you can come and you can minimize the Black American contributions as a foreigner, and then if I stand up for our contributions in our homeland that my people built, I'm the bad guy. That's where you provoke hostility to where you can't just like throw stuff out there, and then when it comes back in return, we defend ourselves, accuse us of being divisive. Like, we have our own separate lineage and we have our own thing we need to advocate for. Another thing Alex said is that we Black Americans should prioritize stopping the United States government from victimizing Black people across the globe. No, we need to stop them from victimizing us first. That needs to be our priority.
What I said.
He's straw manning. I want to give him to respond, but he's bringing up topics that I didn't address. He wants to run away from the topic, then lie and said that I'm saying I only want Caribbean people to give credit. Again, which
I didn't say you only want.
I said Black Americans. You don't. The fact is, your position is that you don't want nothing to do with Africans and Black people. You just like Tariq. You talk out two sides of your mouth. Hey, I got no hate against Black people and Caribbean. So when I say we do something in unison, when we're all on the same accord, if you are genuine, you say, you know what, brother, we need to get back to that. But here you go again, trying to minimize what Caribbeans done by saying, oh, well, some of y'all did, which goes to show to the point where the majority of you ain't on that. That's where you're going. That's where you're going with your argument. And you're being very disingenuous. I'd rather you just say, yo, bro, I don't really fuck with Caribbeans. I really don't like Africans.
That's not true.
I feel that they always undermine us no matter what. Then we can have a real honest conversation.
But that's not true, though. I don't believe that.
But
I don't believe
that's what
that.
you're saying. That's not what you're showing. That's what you say one thing and you're showing something else. Because if again, you said we eating off of you and we you fought for civil rights for you to come here. You said that. I'm writing, I'm writing this all down. Right?
You didn't debut what I just said. I said we fought for Caribbeans to come here, and
that's a lie. You didn't fight for because you're trying to say that you alone fought for us again, which is a lie.
I didn't say. Did I say us alone, or did I say we fought?
Bro, if you omitting Africans and Caribbeans, it shows that either you're ignorant or you're purposely doing it. It's one of the two.
Them. Did I say that those people you talked about
you said some of them we fought for y'all to get here?
I said some of you contributed. I also said that too, right?
That's after the fact, after I corrected you.
Okay.
Stop playing the shell game. Stop playing the shell game.
I'm not arguing that there were a few that contributed and rode the wave of the Black Civil Rights movement, and then they contributed, especially Stokely Carmichael. Big respects to him. But I think the Medgar Evers and all the and everyone that we had, that all the slave revolts, all the people that were during Reconstruction, we did a lot of the legwork in advance that made America a place that people wanted to come from the diaspora. So when you want to say that we did it like almost like 50-50, I think that kind of minimizes what we actually built here. And
we're talking about the civil rights era. You went all the way back to 1600s.
But all that's part of
playing shell game.
Go ahead.
I think too, man, like if I'm just being honest, I think Kofi, you are like kind of throwing rocks and hiding your hand a little bit in terms of your approach, in my opinion. I feel like you say that you're not divisive, you understand FBA, but then you have like, I'm here to kill, I'm an FBA killer or whatever you're saying. It's like, it's like you not liking Tariq Nasheed is one thing. I think that's for everybody out there. It's like, if you don't like Tariq Nasheed, that's one thing. But if we all on the same page about the concept of FBA, then why such just hatred or like intent? Like there's a clear energy that you come in with that's like, and you're using rhetoric, again, that is inflammatory from the start with calling stuff like a cult, FBA killers, I'm here to kill, all this stuff. It's like, if that's what you're here to do, you fall right into like this idea of why the thing is so divisive in the first place. In my opinion, if you got an issue with Tariq Nasheed, just say Tariq Nasheed, but don't start talking about a bunch of FBA niggas because you don't like Tariq Nasheed. You feel what I'm saying? Like Like, just speak to how you don't like what he's doing.
Let me respond to that. I think I answered. It's the second time you asked that question. I answered you the same way the first time you posed that same question. When it comes, I have no problem, like you said, with Tariq. Tariq's baby is FBA. FBA started, it was a grift off of ADOS, and FBA started out with a noble cause fighting for reparations, and you doing projection. Tariq throws for like 2 years straight, saying things about Africans and Caribbeans. And then people who claim to be FBA started getting their fucking feelings. So to me, it sounds like I should just sit there and take the abuse, like in the beginning for the first 2 years, and don't say shit, right? And this is one of the reasons why I started a YouTube channel, because it infuriated me. So if you say, yo, I'm coming with a lot of energy, then yeah, because you're a grown-ass man just like me. Anyone talks bad about Black Americans, you have every right to get at them, right? Same thing with me. I'm a fucking Black man too, and from a different country. Someone gets at me, I should have that same energy, and you should understand. But so it's not like, and again, when you have to understand, when I talk about FBA, I'm not talking about all Black Americans. FBA is a hashtag. It's something that's
you're talking about the movement.
Yes. I'm not talking about Black Americans in general, because Black Americans in general don't know what the hell an FBA is. You know what I'm saying? So again, I'm not speaking about all Black Americans. I'm talking about what FBA started out as. It did a bait and switch. It had a noble cause, and most of it is just throwing rocks at Caribbeans and Americans. You got AFRICOM. One was AFRICOM talking bad about Black Americans in order to have a legitimate claim.
So again,
it's a disingenuous thing that you guys are not realizing.
It's not you guys. You're talking about, like you said, like something that Tariq Nasheed represents, and you're lumping in like everybody as you guys. But my whole point here is saying that if you claim to not be divisive, you don't come off that way, is what I'm saying. Like you don't understand. You seem to be like the anti-hero to Tariq Nasheed, like, which doesn't make it any healthier, right? Like one extreme.
Why is that?
One
man, he's a man. He makes mistakes. I could critique any man, and you say you're not in the cult, but then it seems like you have issues with me talking about Tariq Nasheed.
No, I don't. What I'm pointing out is that you're very divisive. That's what I'm saying very clearly here.
In what manner am I divisive?
Your rhetoric, it's very inflammatory. It's no better than what your rhetoric is no better than what you're accusing Tariq Nasheed of. Is all I'm saying here. You're just a different version.
Besides the word cult,
you're the anti-hero.
That was inflammatory.
You just said you was an FBA killer. You just said that.
I was joking. I was just joking.
Oh Lord! Come on, y'all. I'm saying, man. Like this is like the best, like microcosm of everybody trying to misunderstand each other.
So why can't the Caribbean things just be jokes? Why can't those be jokes?
It's coming from. See, this is your problem. Again, I'll say it again. For 2 years, y'all don't say shit, right? The Caribbeans didn't say nothing. The moment we say something, y'all want to cry, bitch, and moan, right? Not respecting. Now it's not jokes. Now the shit is serious. Like, come on now.
You're complaining about how somebody's talking, but when you talk, it's jokes. So I'm saying, why is it not lighthearted jokes from the other side?
Irrational comparison, because Tariq Nasheed started out, again, we talk about hitting.
Who's an entertainer, right? He's an entertainer.
We talk about hitting. He's an entertainer. He's a pimp. He's all
Makes
that.
Content.
Whatever. He likes white women and all that shit. Whatever. What I am saying, FBA started out as a hate group. It's like you don't want to pull behind. You don't like what you see behind the curtain. You're looking at what the mantra. Oh, we're gonna get I don't like what Yvette Carnell is doing. I'm gonna show you guys how to get reparations, and you still are not even in front of any board. You didn't even overturn on you're not even on reparations board at all, right? All you guys doing is entertainment, talking about Caribbeans, right? And you don't like that. Doesn't rest with your soul, because you know that's wrong. That's what I'm responding to. You trying to mix it up like, well, I hate all on Black Americans. No, that's not what it is. How FBA started out talking shit about Africans and Caribbeans is my problem. And again, you can look on my channel. I talk shit about Africans who talk bad about Black Americans. So you're not going to sit here and tell me that it's coming from a disgenuine place because you're a Black American and I'm from the Caribbean. I'm a Pan-African. Okay, I'm sorry, but that's what it feels like. I feel like you are more divisive than what you might think. I think the way that you speak is not a way that builds consensus. It's not a thing that helps people meet in the middle. You speak in a way that only further incites the separation. All Black Americans are on Section 8 and they just kiss white ass and they don't work. They have no work ethic. That's why they want reparations. If I was to say that and you used to come back at me and defend that, and I was to say the same thing you're saying, you would call bullshit.
Now, honestly, I wouldn't even defend something like that. I would laugh because it's like an ignorant thing to say. Like it's like,
all right, then you would laugh and you would tell me how much I'm full of shit. That's not me. That's not you being divisive. That's you correcting the record.
No, but you like you just said, you built a whole platform to respond to something because you felt attacked or whatever the thing. Like I said, like
no, I didn't feel attacked. I was attacked.
You said
Hey fellas, let's try to get back on topic. I think we're spending a lot of time on like defining if Kofi is divisive or not.
I'm just
I think that the main root of all of this issue is everybody's trying not to understand each other. To me, I'm clearly understanding both people, and it's really clear as day if both people are not trying to talk past each other. And
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, but hey, Black, I'm gonna toss it back your way.
Got a question or just
well, I was gonna kind of let you round up the conversation.
Yeah, man. I was like, I don't really think I think it's a difference between defending and speaking up for your thoughts and like being divisive. Like this rhetoric to me hasn't been like crazy. Like, oh my God, did he just say that? And you know, I think I understand when he say I'm the FBA killer. Like it's in jest, and you know, it's like Umar calls himself King Kong consciousness, or you know, people putting a nickname onto something, but it's not a derogatory term or an offensive term. I think it's just, you know, in just with the conversation. So like I said, I can differentiate between somebody kind of, you know, being funny or using their personality and then like just being outright hateful and, you know, adding things to the conversation that don't progress or move it. So
what about Nigerian killer? My bad. If I'm an African killer, would you think that was also just kind of funny?
Well, African is a real continent. FBA is a made up group by a former pimp. So I think you would be offending an entire continent versus a made up group that hasn't produced or progressed or done anything in the history of America.
That's an irrational comparison. Full of irrational comparisons.
That's where the issue is right there, because I thought we agreed that the group FBA is like, this is like we talking about this lineage versus heritage thing. Like,
but like that's what I tried my hardest at the very, very beginning to say, all right, so we all understand we're not talking about the lineage part. We're talking about the movement piece. That's why I tried to clarify it, because I've seen this part of the conversation in this circle keep happening over and over and over and over.
No, I agree with FB in its inception that they need to get reparations. They didn't like what Yvette Carnell was doing. They think it was inefficient how she was going about it. I agree with that. Though everything else I disagree with, because as far as when it comes to like, well, FBA is our only people that's been here since slavery, and not them Jamaicans and them Grenadians and stuff like that, and that's not how that worked. So
you're talking about the rhetoric from the movement of FBA people.
Yes, mostly.
Right, and that's what you disagree with.
Let me simplify it. If FBA was like, hey, look, we need to get our money, right, and that's it, without throwing. I said this on last week in backstage, right? If FBA was on some like, hey, look, we just want to get our money. Let's say a Jamaican comes on there like, well, I want that money too. If being a responsible leader like Tariq Nasheed is say, hey, brother, you don't get nothing. What are you trying to do? Undermine our movement, kick rocks. But no, I'm going to talk about you need to eat jerk chicken and you failed and you're a runner and stuff like that. But according to G, we're not supposed to say nothing. We're just supposed to take that on the chin.
No, I'm not saying you're not supposed to. I want to be clear. I'm not saying you can do what you want. All I'm simply saying is I think your approach is more divisive than one that helps bring it together. That's all I'm saying.
I don't understand how I'm being divisive if I'm defending someone.
Kofi, let me hop in.
You don't have to agree.
Hey, fellas, let me hop in. Again, we're gonna go in a circle of division about if Kofi's divisive. Yeah, I think the audience has heard enough of that part. But if we're to stay in a similar lane of division, I'll ask this question to y'all, and then we can get into some call-ins. Do you think that the diaspora and blacks in America are seen different in the eyes of the power structure? Johnny, we'll start with you.
In the eyes of the power structure,
yeah, here in America, or do they just lump them all in as them black people?
Here in America, I mean, I think there are differences, but I don't think the power structure takes any time to notice the differences. I think we're all just tools in the system. I think they, might use them a little differently to use us against each other, but they use, the black family structure against each other. So I think I think we're all the same in their eyes.
Okay, Alex.
I think at home in America, no, I don't think the power structure looks at us any differently. Well, maybe not differently based upon like heritage. I think differently based upon class. I think, if you look like you're upper middle class or upper class, I think you are going to have a different experience than someone who is working class or lower class. I do think that is a real thing.
Right, socioeconomic level.
Yeah, like I think that has more your perceived
staying to like the perception of like black in the diaspora. Because I agree with that part.
Yeah, your perceived socioeconomic status, I think it takes more precedence over your heritage and a great number of situations. However, I think outside of the American power structure, like just like people who live abroad, I don't think there are certain liberties that are spared when it comes to like exacting pretty much the most brute force, exploitation possible on people abroad in Africa, in the Caribbean, pretty much all of the developing world. Africa is a place that's rich with minerals, rich with resources, and there isn't like since like the 1500s, pretty much Africa has been at war with somebody from the Western Hemisphere, pretty much trying to fight for the sovereignty, fight for the resources. It doesn't get really highlighted, like it's not something that gets taught in school. But like, yeah, I do think that in the white power structure, if we're talking about it outside of the country, I don't think there is certain liberties that are spared in exacting exploitation and pretty much just dominance.
Gotcha. G, actually the same question. Do you think that blacks in the diaspora are seen as different in the eyes of the American power structure?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do think that once they get here, they are perceived as black. I do think like that is true. Like from a race perspective, the average white power person doesn't know the difference between, somebody from Haiti versus Kenya versus Southside, right? Like I'm not sure if they can decipher that. But when I just look at where a lot of folks end up, like when I look at black, quote unquote, successful black people, a lot of these names that get mentioned, they're not necessarily of Black American descent in a lot of regards. So it makes me think like, if you're pursuing certain fields, if you're going after certain roles, you might have a easier or a path of less resistance if your last name is not one of these, European last names, if you will. If you've got like a clear African name, I think that for whatever reason, I noticed that a lot of quote unquote successful Black people are not necessarily of Black American descent. When you look at doctors, engineers, things of that nature, a lot of them are coming over, having success, finding ways to climb that ladder. And I think that part of that reason why is because there's less friction for them compared for us, in my opinion.
I have a rebuttal, but I'm gonna let Trey go. I think that's interesting. We're gonna come back to that. Trey.
I think G hit it on the head with that last part. Like, they get less friction from the dominant society because they don't share our centuries-long grievance with them. Like, they come over here, and a lot of them are just like are happy to be here. That's why they came. They wouldn't have come here to fight. And on top of that, if they do fight back, they're subject to get deported. So they couldn't even fight back if they want to. So I think it benefits them to bring people over here who are more docile, more complicit to white supremacists. And they've known this since they teamed up with some of those tribes in Africa to sell us off into slavery in the very beginning. Like, even now, a lot of them are still getting sold into modern day slavery, like in cage, getting beat around by Arabs today. Even now, like, they're selling like the Chinese infrastructure over there, like they're the majority, and then still, get dominated from Europeans. Meanwhile, we're a minority, and we're constantly rebelling and fighting back. So I think we're like Kendra said, they're not like us, and they know that if they help these other people, then it's gonna supplant us, and it's going to help them on this chessboard of white supremacy.
And so I guess just a quick question. So you think that there's like a concerted effort of looking at last names to decipher who they're going to gatekeep?
I don't think you need last names.
I don't want to say it's a concerted effort, but there are studies in terms of how a resume is filled out and how certain things can impact the likelihood of you advancing to the next stage based off of different pieces of the resume. And so I don't think it's a concerted effort, but I think when things are getting processed and you're looking at candidates and so forth, I think there's like less of a fear when you're, say, of the power structure working with an immigrant. There's like less of a fear of an angry Black man walking through the door, so to speak, or like an angry Black woman walking through the door. Then,
and so I guess if I was just to ask this question before I go to A Black, do you think that like one of the simpler answers to this would be the same difference as pretty much every minority that immigrates to America, in which like a lot of times the people that are coming here are a lot of times the best, the brightest. And there's a specific emphasis on education, and they prioritize that. And that's why like these kids are testing higher. They're getting into like these STEM programs. They're graduating with degrees inside, whether it's in the medical field, in engineering, XYZ, to where like they would be seen inside that specific space more.
Yeah, I feel like, I know Trey was talking about them supplanting us and all of that. Like, if we so easily supplanted, then who's that on? It's like
y'all.
I get supplanted, but I'm just saying, it's like when people come and they take things or make them better, that's when people want to complain. It's almost like gentrification. People come in the hood, they flip the houses, they make them better, and then people want to complain. But when we had it, we didn't take care of it. We threw trash on it. We didn't own it. We didn't want to make it better. So it's like when the immigrants come, like I said, they're sitting their best and their brightest. I wouldn't call them docile. I think we're still just as docile as anything. People still getting up, going to their white jobs, and they're being respectful and whatnot. But if they're coming from situations where they have less resources, where they have less infrastructure, where they have less in general, yeah, they're not coming here and fucking it up. Yeah, they might not want to be as rebellious, but they're not less or more rebellious than we are. Like, Black people are just as still docile. Like, it goes around. It's like we still in the same struggle. Like, just to be having a conversation about African immigrants taking anything from us, like it's just so wild to me because it don't match up. We can all go to our jobs tomorrow or wherever we work, and somebody tell me if there are more Africans there working, you know, like unless you maybe a doctor or a nurse in the medical field, like what industry are Africans really supplanting you right now?
I don't know about supplanting is the best word, but like in the world of tech and STEM, there's a heavy like when you look at the percent, like, you know, there's a percentage of black engineers, black doctors. Mm-hmm. You walk in these engineering rooms, a lot of those black folks will be like not American, so to speak.
And to speak on that, it's like it's the same thing with them being doctors and them being lawyers. It's like what they push on and what they value as important in their culture. Now tech is a leading industry. Like I'm in tech now. I'm in school for tech. I'm learning coding. I'm getting cybersecurity certifications. Like, and I preach it to everybody I come across, from my brothers to anybody. And you know what? Niggas don't be wanting to get down with this shit. It's like it takes work. I gotta study. I gotta focus. Like a lot of our culture wants the easy route. Now,
come on,
bro. Let me jump in real quick.
I know we have some exceptions on this call and people that are involved in that industry, but I'm just saying that the general masses of people, they don't want to work for money. They want
wait. Yo, Q, hey, Black, let me say something real quick. Not to derail this shit again, but like oftentimes, like there's often this talk of like people of the diaspora are docile, or there's a great majority or a great, you know, like why are the results the way they are? But like, I think one thing that is profound to me, at least, is when you look at the NBA, when you look at the NFL, these are predominantly black like institutions as far as like the players go, right? And if we're just looking at the demographic, to me, it's unique when someone is of Caribbean or African descent in those industries, right? So I'm saying that all to say this. Even these are like, honestly, like forget the talented 10. These are like the most talented, most exceptional black men as far as athletics go. But for some reason, when it comes to like the structure of how these sports are organized, they kind of get the worst end, the bad, despite them being the majority, despite them having a whole host of money, they don't necessarily win in the I guess the ultimate struggle of controlling those industries, of controlling those arenas of entertainment. So like, I guess like what I'm ultimately trying to say is, like we keep like passing this like why don't the Africans, why don't the Caribbeans, da 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 da, but like even on the most wide, like worldwide scales, I mean the worldwide arenas, like I don't think that's a thing that anyone has been able to do. And I think the NBA and the NFL, the MLB is a good example of that phenomenon happening. Despite you having the economics, despite you having the majority, that doesn't necessarily going to equate to you having the overwhelming infrastructure in place.
So, Alice, what you're saying is these African countries are like the NBA players, but their owner is the white supremacists.
No, what I'm saying is, if I'm going off of what you always say, you're going by just sheer majority, right?
Yeah, you compare these majority black countries to the NBA. So I'm saying if we're going by that logic, then that means the owner of these African countries must be Europeans, based on your analogy.
That's not what I'm saying, Trey. Let me explain it to you again. What I'm saying is, if you are always equating someone having a majority, and I'm equating like that's not necessarily going to always weigh out in white supremacy, because that's not how anything works. You can be the majority of a country, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a Western country, a country with more developed, like most of these countries didn't get their democracy until last century. They're playing catch up. A lot of these places are. So you're comparing like, hey, y'all got the money, y'all got the resources, y'all got this, but the same phenomenon is happening here in America where, hey, like since integration, y'all pretty much been dominating this league. Why aren't y'all coaches? Why aren't y'all owners? Like, it's the same conversation, just on a smaller scale.
I got you. So these African countries are like athletes that are employed by white Europeans. Got it.
I mean, if you purposely just want to be
Oh.
Dutch, I guess.
I don't think that's what he was saying, but like, I mean, I see both sides of it. I've been sitting here for a few weeks on this FBA Pan-African thing, and it sounds like we want the same things for each other. It feels like, and I'm FBA. I've seen somebody say something about it's only 2 FBA up on this panel. That's definitely wrong. But I just want to.
I think they're talking about movement. You part of the movement too?
No,
Oh no, I'm talking lineage.
You off code,
I don't know.
You
Take
were
that head off. I
telling-
might disagree. I don't know, Johnny.
But like all I'm saying is, like, none of these white countries, you know, all of these colonial countries in times of war, they all work together. You know, when Germany was coming to go, France and Britain, they all ended up working together. Even a lot of the Asian countries, they team up and work together. And I think in order to fight the colonial system, yes, FBA is going to have to, you know, have our own unique struggle, and there's things that we need to work on within our own country. But the last thing we need to do is be fighting other black people out here in the world when it's white people that we need to be fighting. And it's so disheartening to just see us just argue with each other for weeks on weeks on weeks and not really get to the issue or the cause or any solution to it. And it's like, at the end of the day, I think they all look at us the same, whether it's France and Haiti, whether it's Britain and Jamaica, whether it's white supremacists in America. I think we're all being oppressed, and instead of fighting each other, we should work together and try to, you know, fight back against that system and not each other. So I mean, to me, that's my only point. And
no, I got it. And Johnny, I'm a frame your statement into pretty much a closing topic. Is black success in America possible without the help of the diaspora? Well, also, like, depending on how this question goes, we might be able to sneak in a caller or two. We'll drop the call.
You're just gonna skip me, bro?
Oh, I'm gonna start with you. These conversations be going really long, and I'll be like, yeah. So we'll start with you. You can answer both questions. Kofi.
All right. The fact, like, wow. I mean, a lot of things has been said. Some, you guys are very sensitive. A lot of things was saying, like, you know, we're lackadaisical and we're lazy, and not we're lazy, we're passive, but that's okay. But the moment I start pushing against that, I'm being divisive. So I have to let a lot of shit being said, and I can't even say anything. So Yvette Cornell, she was talking to on Mark Lamont Hill. Mark Lamont Hill, the same question you're asking us, Mark Lamont Hill asked. He's like, well, do you think an African or a Caribbean, because 80 West is also divisive and xenophobic and racist. Tariq Nasheed just took it to another level, right? And she asked Yvette Cornell, he asked Yvette Cornell, are Caribbeans, do the dominant society see Caribbeans and Africans and African Americans as the same? Yvette Cornell said no with her chest out. And that's very sad. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm in my 40s. I don't know how old you guys are. I've lived and I've seen things. I've been treated the same way, right? I've been locked up for for obviously for, you know, pretty much me thinking that then they say, oh, this guy is a Caribbean. I got the same tropes put on me like I would a Black American. I've been pulled over for no reason, just like a Black American, right? So to say that I mean, you had Abdullah Diallo, which was not even FBA. He got beat to death and a nightstick up his ass. So what for people, I guess, older like myself or whatever, when I hear people say that, it's like these people don't know their own country where they live in, their own land. You haven't even lived your life or talked about people who may not be Black American. Maybe because I live in New York, right? So to me, to just hang around just Black Americans, that would be a choice because it's a melting pot here. But I've been treated all types of way. My mother gave me the talk, like, "Hey, look, you're a Black man in this country. Some FBAs don't think that we don't consider each other Black, right?" My Jamaican friend, I go to his house, we're going out. She's like, "Y'all going out?" I'm 6'3". My friend is like 6'2". He's like, "Look, y'all like 16 years old. Y'all look like grown-ass big men here. There's cops out there, you know, they're going to treat you. They don't care about how, if you're 16. All they see is Black." So to hear Black Americans say that is very disheartening. And you guys are like my younger brother's age. So you guys to say, well, oh, white supremacy treat us different. I don't think you guys understand what white supremacy is. What was the second question?
1 second. Black success in America, is it possible without the help of the diaspora?
It is, yes. It is. It's well, define what Black success is, because there are a lot of Black successful people.
So I'll say, in the way that I mean it, is changing socioeconomic statuses, making the average socioeconomic status of the average Black person rise to a space of decent standard. I think that, to me, that's what I usually mean.
Well, I mean, you will have to pretty much follow Dr. Claude Anderson's Powernomics to that. But again, when we had this conversation last week, we are not our forebears. We're not our foreparents. We don't even know come to get together to boycott H&M, Papa John's, things that disenfranchise Black people, like Chase Bank. JP Morgan was a part of the slave trade, right? People still bank at JP Morgan, right? Certain things we don't even know. The Barclays here in New York, the Barclays Center. Barclays was also a part of the transatlantic slave trade, right? You think you're gonna not get a bunch of Black people not to go to the Barclays, to boycott the Barclays, if Nicki Minaj is playing and Lil Wayne is playing? Nah, them niggas are gonna go anyway, right? But is there Black success stories? Yes. Are there Black successful Black Americans here? Yes. But as a group, as a totality to get somewhere, no, I don't think we're that disciplined in order to get to that next level.
Okay. Next, whoever want to hop in.
I'll go. I mean, I think you have to I think, like you said, we have to define what the word success is. I mean, like my boy Trey say, I think based on what we're up against, Black people in America have been, successful. Is there more room to go? Of course. Is there, things left to check off? Of course. But I mean, if you look at what we've overcome and what we've accomplished and what we've, built and had stolen from us, it's hard to say we haven't been successful in this country. But I think there's still more goals that we, need to check off. And I'm a big, I'm a big nationalist and sovereignty type of guy. And I think if we're gonna talk about those type of goals, we do all need each other. Now just for just regular success in America, the status quo, and just to keep on doing what we're doing, of course, we don't need, the rest of the diaspora to continue what we've been doing. But if we want to maybe, do something else and achieve bigger goals, of course you need allies. That's the whole, the term is allies. And geopolitics, allies are very important. And I don't see why we want to have enemies the same skin color as us when we could be allies. I mean, of course, that's, to me, it's crazy. But yeah, to me, it's crazy.
I got you. So in essence, it sounds like you're saying individually, yes. As a group, no.
Basically, yeah. In the scheme of things, we need to come together as allies.
Gotcha. Trey.
I can be kind of quick. I think, like what John was saying, I think we need the diaspora to build up their homelands to become proper allies. Otherwise, like, what do we really stand to gain? And I think also what John says is also true. We're the most successful Black people in the Black diaspora as Black Americans. And I don't think it has anything to do with proximity to Europeans, because the Europeans in America are the most successful white people in the world due to proximity to FBAs. So we were able to accomplish everything we've accomplished without needing help from the Black diaspora. And honestly, they gained more from our connection with them than the opposite way, which is, I think, why this delineation movement is so upsetting to a lot of people in the diaspora, because we've gone so long just playing along with being one big African. So when we separate and say, no, we want to talk about our accomplishments in America, we want to keep that same energy and keep that fight alive, that's when it becomes like, oh, you don't want to be my brother no more type of situation. And it's not that, because those of us that are on, those of y'all that are on code, then we love y'all. But if you want to come in and get in our conversations and derail them and talk about what we don't have and talk about how much is better over there and then say the negative tropes and we fight back, then it's a problem, even though we're on our home turf and we can never go in your homeland and give that same energy. It just gets to where it seems like we would be stronger separate.
Gotcha. At the buzzer. Good job.
We got three in there actually.
A Black.
Yeah, I mean, success is, everybody got different definitions of success, and I feel like it's levels. So I agree with Trey to a point of, Black Americans have reached certain levels of success without full help of the diaspora. I think, though, to achieve a new level and another level, we definitely need to build those relationships. How do we get land masses behind us? How do we get armies and military forces behind us? How do we get natural resources behind us, and get interest and get shares and get unions, with these countries and become a part of that, so we have something to fall back on outside of the idea of reparations. Because just say we never get reparations and shit does go down and we have no place to go, like we forge these relationships, and we can be flown out to Ghana, Kofi can go to Guyana, we have these different safe spaces built because we're starting to forge these relationships abroad. We're getting into the business aspect of like, how can we help y'all with our knowledge that we've learned here to gain control of y'all resources and keep those controlled. What can our Black American lawyers and businessmen and economists do to go over there and help them regain control of their resources? And at the same time, help funnel that back towards us, and create an endowment for Black people and a union for Black people. And it's like we have to start thinking, broader than just being separate now, because we've been that for decades, and I think we've reached a plateau. And it's like that next level is like we need to be connecting with them and taking what we've learned in association to white supremacy, to white people, taking it to these different countries and helping them to regain their resources, to regain their government, and at the same time, us becoming integrated and a part of that, instead of trying to become integrated into this system that's only going to let you rise so high. And when you do rise high, you don't do nothing for your own people because they pollute you and corrupt you or whatever. So I think that next level of Black success definitely depends on diaspora relationships, because we've already had a sample size of what being separate is like, and like we've hit a plateau.
Gotcha. So I think we have 3 call-ins in the back. So we'll bring them up, and we're gonna give y'all 2 minutes on the clock, and we'll kind of switch in and out. Let us know your thoughts. We'll give you 2 minutes uninterrupted. You up? I'm gonna let you say your name. Say it again.
Ditso.
Okay, Ditso.
Yeah.
Afro, Indigenous, Latin American. Talk to us.
That's good.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. The name Ditso means seed in the language of one of my tribes here in Costa Rica. Just to be clear, I am not in the United States, but I am in America. I am in a country called Costa Rica. I just wanted to say as follows. As a Latin American and somebody with descent of African and indigenous, we hear these conversations of the United States extremely divisive, because one element that happens is the erasure of blackness in the Western Hemisphere. Is everybody aware what am I talking about? What am I referring to? Western Hemisphere is this area that goes from Argentina to Alaska, Canada, and the Caribbean. This continent that was called, and is this today called America. North America, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure that everybody are on the same line. This being said,
seconds.
Yes, this being said, we built in the last 200 and 250 years 35 nations. We are foundational Black Americans of each of our respective countries, not only United States in the case of those who were in the United States. And that being said, the problem here is that this divisiveness emanates, Alex said it, he's not here anymore, emanates that the movements have not been able to divorce, especially the Anglo-speaking North American United States have not been able to divorce themselves from the imperialism, exceptionalism of white nationalism that prevails in the United States.
Great point. Great point. We appreciate you. Love to have you back next week. We'll have the call-in section again. Again, I think that's a valid point. In which I'll at some point want to get FBA Trey's perspective on Black people being FBA to all the different spaces of the Western Hemisphere. Great, appreciate you. G.
Let me say goodbye, like the people here. Beshko Woblaba means walk with your eyes open. That's how we say goodbye.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
Peace out.
Let's go.
All right, we got another here. Let's see. We got Ak.
All right. Ak, talk to us. You got 2 minutes on the clock. Let us know how you feel.
Hey, brothers. How y'all doing? My name is AK. I'm calling in. I'm a Black American, and I wanted just to call in just to correct some things, okay? Because I'm a doctor. I'm not going to say what type of doctor I am, but let me state this. Black people across the globe who come here to this country benefit from Black American struggles. I've seen them eat off the plate of my ancestors in our blood. Yes, were there Caribbeans here fighting? Were there Caribbean writers here with us? Yes. But also understand that the Caribbean population or the Black population before 1965 was less than 1%. Matter of fact, it was below 0.5%. Why do I say that? I say that to say this. You guys benefit from what we fought from. And for Kofi to say that we did not fight for you guys to come here, that's not true. That's a lie. One of our requirements for us to really turn down in this country was to add to our Black population. I don't call foreign Blacks tethers because of they're just Black. I call people tethers because they come here to undermine us. Okay? Secondly is that all you guys are our brothers, okay? I don't agree with everything that goes on, but Black Americans have to crack some eggs to create some level of delineation to make sure that we're okay. We're not over in CARICOM saying that Caribbeans don't deserve reparations. There is no record of Black Americans doing that. Now, we do have records of Caribbean people doing that. We do have records of Caribbean people trying to steal our culture, like hip-hop. Hip-hop has nothing to do with Caribbean culture. Yes, we've had some people like Flash, Bam, Hurt, other people to contribute, and we respect those people, but what we don't respect is people like Busta Rhymes who try to take our culture and sit it in the Caribbean. That's what Microphone Check is about. That's what us delineating is about.
AK, appreciate you. I know you had more to go. 2 minutes up. We got another caller, but we appreciate your perspective, brother.
Bars.
I can't respond to that, or
we got
one more caller.
We got one more. We got one or two more actually.
Yeah, we're on the time crunch.
Yeah. Here we go. Bawana.
Buana.
Go ahead, you up. Time ticking.
Yes, sir. Kofi, thank you for inviting me to the panel. I just have a few questions and a few statements to make. The first statement is when I hear these people say that FBA is a lineage, and I'm saying that FBA is a copywritten thing. It's copywritten under the name Tariq Nasheed. So I'm asking the question, how could you copyright a lineage? I can't use the name FBA without Tariq Nasheed's permission. If it's a lineage, then everyone's supposed to be able to use it without asking Tariq Nasheed. That's the first statement. The second statement that I heard is the gentleman said that we call these people a kata. I'm asking the brother who made that statement, what African language is a kata? You said a kata means cotton picker. What African language is that? Because the only time I heard that was on a movie called Sugar Hill, and that movie was created by an African American writer and a Cuban writer, and the three people, the two Africans, the two people who were playing Nigerians in that movie were African Americans. They were African Americans besides Wesley Snipes and his counterpart. So I'm asking, what African language is the term akata for cotton picker? The third statement, that the thing I wanted to address, is the thing of Caribbean people having a superiority complex. First of all, if we had a superiority complex, why did the Africans in Haiti overthrow the white French in Haiti? Why are they currently fighting against the United States and people who are coming to that country to try to overrun that country with the ideas of white supremacy if they have a white supremacist complex? Why do the Jamaicans have the same kind of vigor in terms of having ideas of being anti-colonial and pro-African in them countries if they have the white man complex? This is the questions that I have. Yes, sir. Okay. All right. No worries.
You
all
get
right.
the 2 minutes, Trey.
No worries, brother.
Bullet point those questions. I think you got like 4 questions you got to answer. Yeah, we got another one.
Yeah, we actually got 2 more, man. But shout out to Kamu, he back, man. You got
Kamu,
you got
2 minutes
time to jump in there.
Yeah, you might got a minute now. Yeah, we getting close to that buzzer.
Hey, good morning,
Go ahead, Kamu.
Yo, Jess. FBA is not going to work. I made a point last week about South Africa having similar organizations and groups that advocate for the same philosophy. Here, they might work because I told you all that a majority of Africans are Akuns. So if you have an African majority that that you can play with, it can work to push hate on other Africans. In America, it will never work because Black America is a perpetual minority, and I think Pan-Africanism is the only way for Black America. This FBA philosophy, it's hoax. It's never gonna work.
Appreciate you, Kamu. Tap in with us again next week.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. We got one last one. We got Herc Owen in the building. Herc, talk to us. Oh, Herc gone. All right, so.
Oh, if Herc gone, let's wrap it up, fellas. Everybody kind of give where everybody can find you at, and yeah, we'll wrap it up.
Man, it's been a hell of a evening tonight. A lot of passionate conversation. Ultimately, appreciate everybody's engagement. You can follow at GSHPOD, the G Shit Podcast, on all platforms, where we focus on family, friends, finances, freedom, and our future, and fuck everything else. Hi.
Johnny.
Oh yeah, what up? It's your boy Johnny P. Again, appreciate y'all for having me. Appreciate the conversation. Follow at 2B Fair Show every Sunday, 4:30 p.m. We out.
FBA Trey. You're muted, my boy.
Appreciate the calls. People appreciate the conversation. Appreciate everyone in the chat. Leave comments, hit the likes, subscribe. And Reparations Rally June 15th in DC, rallyforreparations.com, part of the FBA, one of our many movements that we have popping. And the delineation movement will stay strong, and we will get there. And foreigners, you can get with it, or you can get called out.
You gotta be quick.
No hate.
Trey. We got a minute now.
That's it. I'm done.
All right, Kofi.
Yeah, thank you again for having me. It was a good conversation, regardless of whatever. I think we did break a little bit of ground, you know. Again, I appreciate being here. You know,
where can they find you at?
Kofi the Black Critic. That's my YouTube channel, Kofi the Black Critic. Pretty much I want to say peace to all the
Kofi,
panel. Yeah.
We got like 20 seconds left.
Yeah.
Hey, Black. You're muted, my boy.
You're muted.
I'm gonna give him his outro. That's A Black TV, also the mayor of Charlotte. He campaigning in the city.
Yeah, man, that's me. Peace.
All right, peace. All right. So again, it's been another great episode of Unpacked, a fire one. Make sure y'all hit the like, comment, subscribe, and comment. Yeah, all that good shit.